Chapter 45-42. Qin Xiaoye was slightly taken aback by Kang Xinmu's reminder, but she quickly recovered and nodded solemnly. Emichim, thank you for the reminder. If not for Kang Xinmu's reminder, Qin Xiaoye, who had had a smooth journey, might really have thought that the invasion of the 9 races was the same as the invasion of the demonic creatures. If she was careless, she might have encountered an accident. However, even though she had responded to Kang Xinmu, she clearly did not take it to heart. Most importantly, in her opinion, Kang Xinmu's strength was about the same as hers, and her team had Zhu Wudi to help her. Since Kang Xinmu could return alive, they could too. Of course, after Kang Xinmu's reminder, she had become more careful. Kang Xinmu could also tell that she had taken his reminder to heart, but she did not take it to heart. This made Kang Xinmu sigh inwardly, but he did not say much. If he did, Qin Xiaoye would probably find him a little annoying. There was no need for that. Although they were friends, and Kang Xinmu did not want to see anything happen to them, he could not be too careless when dealing with girls. So, Kang Xinmu looked at Zhu Wudi. Zhu Wudi, why don't we go and spar now? I've been cultivating in the Dragon Continent for a year, and I don't know what level I'm at now, nor do I know what level the geniuses of the Dragon Martial Academy have reached. Zhu Wudi was a little surprised to hear this. I heard that Brother Kang Xinmu's talent is the ability to devour and counterattack. It's rare to see someone with these 2 abilities at the same time. I've wanted to see it for myself since a long time ago. There was a hint of hostility in their words, but no one took this friendly spar to heart. Please. Kang Xinmu laughed. The meal was almost over. Since Kang Xinmu wanted to exchange pointers with Zhu Wudi, the others naturally wanted to observe. Little did he know, Kang Xinmu didn't propose to compare notes with Zhu Wudi because he wanted to see his strength. He just wanted a chance to be alone with Zhu Wudi, and to remind him to be careful when he went out. After all, the 9 races were invading the martial dragon continent at the same time. The danger was unimaginable. Moreover, Qin Xiaoye had brought along Kang Xinmu's friends. Whether it was Luo Han, Su Qin, or Liang Liang, the son of the Dragon Emperor of Lianglong country, Kang Xinmu didn't want anything to happen to them. The sparring session was set to take place in the Martial Dragon Fortress's plaza. Although the number of martialists in the Martial Dragon Fortress was not small, it was still much smaller than some of the cities on the Martial Dragon continent. After all, those who were strong enough to come to the Martial Dragon Fortress were not weaklings. The plaza was built for martialists from all over. It was a place for them to spar and discuss dragon martial techniques. When Kang Xinmu and Qin Xiaoye arrived at the plaza, they found that there were not many people there. Only a few people had watched the previous duel and hadn't left yet. Clearly, there were not many people in the plaza. Only Dragon Emperor level experts were qualified to bring their Dragon King subordinates to the Martial Dragon Fortress. Apart from some Dragon Emperor countries who had grudges against Dragon Emperor countries, very few people would spar in the plaza. On the other hand, many Dragon King and students from different Martial Dragon Academies liked to spar here. For the students of the various Martial Dragon Academies, sparring grounds had always been a problem. After all, students from different Martial Dragon Academies did not want to spar in their opponent's home ground. That would affect them greatly. And if it was their home ground, their opponent would be unwilling. Therefore, for the sake of compromise, the plaza became a place for students to spar. When Kang Xinmu's group of 10 arrived at the entrance of the plaza, a 4th-level Dragon Emperor expert, who had reached the Dragon Emperor level, squinted his eyes and said, "Young men, do you want to spar in the plaza? There's a fee, 10 guardian points or demon hunting points per person." This Dragon Emperor expert looked old. He had white hair and a white beard, and his long hair was wrapped around his waist. It was unknown how long he had kept it. "There's a fee in the plaza? Why haven't I heard of it before?" Qin Xiaoye was stunned and began to size him up. There wasn't in the past, but there is today. The white-haired and white-bearded old Dragon Emperor chuckled and said, "After all, a lot of resources were invested in the construction of the plaza. But now, it has become a commonplace for everyone. Isn't it a huge loss for us to invest in the construction of the plaza? Moreover, since yesterday, there have been more and more dragon martial artists coming to the plaza to spar. After all, the battle against the 9 major races is about to begin, so there's a fee to line up. It's lucky that you guys came late, or else there would be people lining up to spar. Hearing this, everyone was a little skeptical. After all, they had never heard of such a situation before. 10 demon hunting points. It's not a lot, I'll give it to you. Before anyone could say anything, Kang Shinmu spoke. To him, 10 demon hunting points was indeed not a lot. It was equivalent to killing a middle-level devil spirit on the battlefield. Of course, there were no middle-level devil spirits on the battlefield of the Void Fisher anymore. 10 demon hunting points could be exchanged for some cultivation resources, no matter what. Not bad, little brother. You're an honest man. The white-haired, white-bearded old man chuckled. However, when I said 10 demon hunting points, I'm not talking about one time. Both sides have to pay. Which 2 of you want to spar? I'll go. Hearing this, Ju Wudi wanted to beat someone up. Old senior, aren't you cheating us? How are we going to earn demon hunting points now? As for guardian points, not many people have them now. You're simply making things difficult for us. How could he have any demon hunting points left? If he had, he would have spent them long ago. All the students of the Dragon Martial Academies were basically like this. They would exchange their demon hunting points for things that were useful to them and could increase their strength. Why would they keep them on them unless they wanted to exchange for something important? For example, holy dragon martial techniques, holy dragon weapons, and so on. Ju Wudi did not have any demon hunting points left. This was the situation of ordinary students. It was extremely rare to see someone as rich and imposing as Kang Shinmu. Therefore, Ju Wudi directly said that he did not have any. The white-haired, white-bearded old dragon emperor said shamelessly, if you can't afford the points, then find somewhere else to spar. Don't come to our martial arts forum. Young man, do you understand? Kang Shinmu did not care about the 10 demon hunting points. However, he felt that this old man was a little too much. Although he could pay for Ju Wudi, was it really reasonable for this old man to charge him? Or was this old man just trying to extort him? Sigma. Chapter 45-43. Seeing that Ju Wudi wasn't going to comply, the old dragon emperor said nonchalantly, if you can't pay, then don't come here to spar. Go, go, go. He stood at the entrance of the martial arts exchange, making Ju Wudi and the others gnash their teeth in anger. What's wrong with this old man? Just when everyone was at a loss, a figure walked past the old dragon emperor and headed straight for the martial arts exchange. It was Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu didn't care. He hadn't paid his demon hunting points yet. However, he wasn't worried at all. Although he didn't know if he needed demon hunting points to spar in the martial arts exchange, he didn't need to pay to spectate, right? So, at most, he wouldn't go up and find someone to spar with. Seeing that Kang Shinmu was heading straight for the martial arts exchange, the old dragon emperor snorted, you want to enter the martial arts exchange without paying? As soon as he finished speaking, he wanted to catch up to Jiang Shenwu and stop him. However, Kang Shinmu pointed at the martial arts exchange, there are so many spectators inside. Do I have to pay to spectate? Hearing this, the old dragon emperor felt a little awkward and stopped. If you're just going in to spectate, of course you don't have to, then what are we waiting for? Liang Xiao and Liang Luo chuckled. They took the lead and walked in, following Kang Shinmu. Xiao Yuhua, Qin Xiaoya, and the others didn't hesitate and walked in. Everyone stepped into the martial arts exchange, but the old dragon emperor didn't chase after them. I keep having the feeling that old fellow is deceiving people. I heard my father say that this martial arts symposium is free to come and go as you please, and it won't charge any fees at all. This was built by all the Dragon Emperor experts, and speaking of which, my father has a share. Liang Luo said. Really? Why don't you ask your dad if this martial arts exchange has a fee? Hearing this, Liang Zhao's eyes lit up. I'll call him over now. Liang Luo snorted softly. He was quite dissatisfied with the old Dragon Emperor. His father, the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang, was now the inheritor of the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance. Among the experts of the Dragon Emperor, he was also regarded as one of the top figures, with high prestige. In that case, let's wait for Senior Dragon Emperor of Great Liang to come first. Kang Xinmu smiled and led the crowd to the spectator area of the martial arts symposium. At this time, there were still some people in the spectator stands who had not left. They had just finished watching the spar. Hey, isn't that Kang Xinmu? In the spectator stands, there were a few students from the Dragon Martial Academy who saw Jiang Xinwu very quickly. They were about to leave when they saw him. I heard that Kang Xinmu and Qin Xiaoye are quite close. It seems that's true after seeing them today. They were all students of Donghuang Yangwu College, and they were quite familiar with Kang Xinmu, Qin Xiaoye, and Zhu Wudi. Among them were Bao Peng and Qin Shouji. The two had just arrived at Yuheng district not long ago, and they had long heard that Kang Xinmu was with Qin Xiaoye. Their strength was at least at the Jade district level. Now it seemed that it was true. This kid, Bao Peng and Qin Shouji were not very close to Kang Xinmu. However, they could be considered friends. Qin Shouji had a sharp tongue, but his heart was not too bad. Zhu Wudi and Qin Xiaoye are great geniuses of our Donghuang Yangwu College. If Kang Xinmu is with them, he must be very strong. It's a pity that our strength was similar to Kang Xinmu's in the past. I didn't expect the gap to be so big in just a few years, Bao Peng and Qin Shouji sighed. Their talent could only be considered average. Qin Fengyu and Lu Hua only had average talent and strength. Therefore, they could only look up to Kang Xinmu now. As for the rumors circulating in Donghuang Yangwu College that Kang Xinmu was a traitor, Bao Peng and Qin Shouji did not believe it at all. Kang Xinmu was a traitor? Loyalty was more like it. There must be someone behind this, and it was someone they could not afford to offend. Therefore, they did not care much about this matter and focused on improving themselves. Could it be that Kang Xinmu, Zhu Wudi, and Qin Xiaoye came to the martial arts forum to spar? That's possible. The two saw Kang Xinmu and the others coming in and started guessing. This immediately piqued their interest. Zhu Wudi was now at the 5th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm, Dragon Emperor was at the 4th level, and so was Qin Xiaoye. As for Kang Xinmu, he had not yet reached the Dragon Emperor, and his cultivation was only at the 9th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. He was only a small step away from the Dragon Emperor and the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. Under such circumstances, did Kang Xinmu really want to spar with them? Not long after. Great Liang's Dragon Emperor, who was resting in the Dragon Martial Fortress, was called over by his son Liang Luo and flew straight to the martial arts forum. Dad, we just wanted to come in to spar, but the old Dragon Emperor at the door wants to charge us? Liang Luo did not waste any time and directly complained to his father. Great Liang's Dragon Emperor had a strong figure, and his 2 tufts of beard seemed to have not been cut for a long time. He was probably busy cultivating and did not pay much attention to his own image. When he heard Liang Luo's words, he said, Where? There are people in this martial arts forum who want to charge fees? I participated in the construction of this martial arts forum, so I can be considered the founder. How come I don't know about it? His anger flared up, and he directly flew towards the entrance of the martial arts forum. In the end, he did not find anyone, and came back angrily. He ran away. I don't know where this wild Dragon Emperor came from, but he dared to behave atrociously in the Dragon Martial Fortress. Don't worry, as long as no one comes to this place, you can go up and spar as you please. There is absolutely no charge. Kang Xinmu naturally believed what Great Liang's Dragon Emperor said. Poor old Dragon Emperor. Originally, it would have been good to have 10 demon hunting points, but now, he did not even get a single point, and ran away to hide. Although it was the old Dragon Emperor, and he had the blood essence of the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance, the old Dragon Emperor would definitely not dare to face Great Liang's Dragon Emperor head-on. Who are you guys who want to spar? At this time, Great Liang's Dragon Emperor glanced at the crowd curiously. Zhu Wudi, let's go up and spar. Only then did Kang Xinmu feel relieved, knowing that he did not violate the rules. As for where the old Dragon Emperor went, he did not care at all. Anyway, he could not be provoked. Let's go, haha. Zhu Wudi was very forthright. With a wave of his sleeve, he flew towards the field, and instantly turned into a green dragon. Seeing Zhu Wudi enter the field, the surrounding dragon martial artists who were about to leave stopped one after another. Someone else is going up to spar. It's Zhu Wudi from Donghuang Yangwu College. Who wants to spar with him? Is it Qin Xiaoya? They are all moving together now. It is normal for them to get to know each other's strength. Bullshit, it's Kang Xinmu. Look, Kang Xinmu is going up. Chapter 45-44. Zhu Wudi transformed into a green divine dragon. He had the power of the wind attribute, and his name was the Mystic Lunar Wind Dragon. His entire body was green, with some light blue lines. The grade of the Dragon Emperor's 4th level inheritance blood essence made his divine dragon body look more than twice as big as Kang Xinmu's. Of course, this was not the main point of this spar. After Kang Xinmu came up, he transformed into a black dragon and directly attacked. The surrounding people watched with relish, but this time, Kang Xinmu did not use the Wind Snow Dragon Stone, and was almost killed by Zhu Wudi in a head-on fight. Fortunately, he used the Divine Dragon Tyrant body art to defend himself. To the spectators, they did not know that Kang Xinmu did not use his full strength. Seeing that Kang Xinmu could withstand so many moves from Zhu Wudi, they already felt that he was very strong. After all, the grade of Kang Xinmu's divine dragon blood essence and cultivation realm were much lower than Zhu Wudi's. If not for the fact that he had cultivated a variety of body-tempering dragon martial skills, he would not be able to withstand Zhu Wudi's attack. If the other dragon warriors were to cultivate the body-refining type dragon martial skill, they would naturally be able to achieve the same effect. However, on one hand, it was too slow for others to cultivate the body-refining type dragon martial skill. On the other hand, if others were to cultivate the body-refining type dragon martial skill, they would not have the slightest bit of attack power. Just like Kang Xinmu's current appearance. But Kang Xinmu relied on the devouring power to burst out a stronger attack, relying on defense to cause more lethality, and was different from ordinary dragon martial artists with strong defense. After all, it was just a spar, and the winner had not been determined. Zhu Wudi might not have used his full strength, and defeating Kang Xinmu at this time was not good for him. In any case, he did not feel that Kang Xinmu had used his full strength, so he did not want to use his full strength. When they left the arena, Kang Xinmu came up to him and said in a low voice, "By the way, it's not convenient to tell Qin Xiaoya before. After all, she's a girl, and I can't say it too many times. But I still have to tell you that it's more dangerous outside this time. The servants of the 9 major races are fine, but if the real members of the 9 major races show up, you'd better run immediately. Generally speaking, they'll use the servants to test us, and then the real members will attack and kill us. The lives of us dragon warriors are considered military exploits for the 9 great clans. It's something they want to compete with, so we can't be careless." This was the second time Zhu Wudi had heard Kang Xinmu warn him of the danger this time. His expression was also solemn. "Yes, don't worry. I will pay attention. Even if they are a little relaxed, if something really happens, I can handle it." He also had some tricks up his sleeve. Even if he encountered danger, he still had a way to escape. Of course, the prerequisite was that he had enough vigilance. Otherwise, if he was ambushed, it would really be over. He just had to be vigilant. When Kang Xinmu saw that Zhu Wudi had taken it to heart, he was relieved. After everyone went their separate ways, Kang Xinmu and the other 4 directly returned to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. They were looking forward to the power of the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. They wanted to see what level they could break through to after using it. It was the same for Kang Shinmu. Will the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone and the Dragon Mark energy resources that I exchanged this time be able to make a breakthrough in both aspects? The grade of the Divine Dragon Blood Essence and the Cultivation Realm. Breakthroughs in every aspect would allow Kang Shinmu's strength to rise to the next level. This time, the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone might be able to help him break through to the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. As for the grade of the Divine Dragon Blood Essence, in comparison, it might not be able to improve and break through to the level of the Dragon Emperor. One had to know that the grade of Kang Shinmu's Divine Dragon Blood Essence had only reached the 9th level of the Dragon King not long ago. If he was in a hurry to improve now, there would be some side effects. There was no need to rush. Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. Let's see how powerful this treasure from the ancient Phoenix clan is. Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. He returned to his palace alone and then took out the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. This Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone emitted fire elemental power. As long as it was activated, it would explode and condense the fire elemental power into a vortex that would absorb the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth. This would cause a huge commotion. Hence, he needed to cultivate under the threat of Emperor Shi, who was absolutely safe. Otherwise, even in the Longwu Fortress, the defense would not be as tight as the one in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Even if Yu Tianchang uses this item, she can save a year of cultivation time. It seems that this Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone can absorb a huge amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Kang Shinmu was looking forward to it. Let's begin. He infused the spiritual chi of heaven and earth into the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone and activated it. Immediately after, he saw the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone emit an incomparably strong fire elemental power. It condensed into the illusion of a fiery red phoenix in midair in the courtyard of his palace. As soon as this fiery red phoenix illusion appeared, it began to frantically absorb the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth. Then, it sprayed the spiritual chi of heaven and earth out of its mouth, and all of it fell onto Kang Shinmu's body like a waterfall. This is how it works. Kang Shinmu glanced at it and was instantly elated. This was similar to absorbing the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. If it were someone else, they would probably not even be able to absorb half of the spiritual chi that poured down like a waterfall. However, Kang Shinmu could use the power of devouring to completely devour the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. His absorption rate was 100%. This was similar to absorbing the spiritual chi of other treasures of heaven and earth. The difference was that the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone was not contained within itself, but absorbed from the surroundings. Countless amounts of heaven and earth spiritual chi were absorbed and then condensed into the fiery red phoenix image. This Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone was not a natural item, but it contained some special runes, which was why it could condense the fiery red phoenix image and absorb the surrounding heaven and earth spiritual chi. Countless spiritual chi of heaven and earth poured down. Without any hesitation, Kang Shinmu directly unleashed the power of devouring from all over his body. He transformed into a black dragon and bathed in the fiery red phoenix. Endless spiritual chi of heaven and earth was constantly absorbed into his body and absorbed into his own power. Even Yu Tianchang can probably only absorb 60% to 70% of the spiritual chi, right? But I can absorb all the spiritual chi. This is the difference between different people who use the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. I wonder how Ran and the others are doing. Of course, Kang Shinmu had no time to think about others now. He had to ensure that he could break through to the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm in one go, or even directly rush to the second level of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. Just like the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, there was no second Reincarnation Behemoth in the first few levels of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. In other words, one could not condense the power of reincarnation. Moreover, the black dragon consciousness in Kang Shinmu's body was now restrained by the demon god Ancestor's consciousness. There was no need for him to go to the dragon's sealing abyss to make a breakthrough. Chapter 45-45. On this day, something strange happened in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. 5 fiery red phoenixes appeared in 5 different places in the Academy's student palaces. They looked up at the sky and absorbed the spiritual chi of the heavens and the earth around them. Then, more and more reincarnation beasts appeared in the sky above Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. This had happened before. After all, breakthroughs were common in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Many students were very familiar with the reincarnation beasts and nirvana beasts. However, it was different this time. This time, 5 reincarnation beasts appeared in succession, and they all appeared in the same places where the 5 fiery red phoenixes were. It looks like Kong Shinmu and the other 4. It's really the 5 of them. They actually broke through at the same time. It looks like they received some incredible reward. I heard that they did something big in the Longwu Fortress. I wonder if it's the reward for that. Most of the students who stayed in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy had not gone to Yuheng District. There were more of them than before, but most of them had average strength. There were also some powerful students who stayed in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. They were surprised to see this. At the same time, 5 people absorbed a large amount of spiritual chi of the heavens and the earth. The spiritual chi of the heavens and the earth around the 5 palaces gathered together. It was even mixed with the energy of the dragon mark. It formed a storm that enveloped the sky above the 5 palaces. The storm of spiritual chi of the heavens and the dragon mark's energy was continuously absorbed by the people in the palaces. It poured down like a waterfall, and this continued for 3 days and 3 nights. The 5 reincarnation beasts all appeared at the end of the 2nd day. On this day, sounds of intense fighting came from 5 different places in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. They were fighting the reincarnation beasts and breaking through to the next realm. What no one expected was that at the end of the 3rd day, another reincarnation beast appeared in the sky above Kong Shinmu's palace. He had broken through 2 realms in a row. With Kong Shinmu's combat strength, it was easy for him to defeat the reincarnation beast. 3 days later, the strange phenomenon in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy finally subsided. Everyone knew that Kong Shinmu, who had always been heaven-defying, was probably even more heaven-defying now. I've broken through 2 realms consecutively and reached the 2nd realm of the Rebirth Tribulation realm. Kong Shinmu watched as the red phoenix phantom dissipated. He was quite satisfied with the 3 days of cultivation. His results were remarkable. All of the heaven and earth spiritual chi gathered by the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone, including all of the Dragon Mark's energy, were all absorbed by him, not sparing a single bit. This allowed him to break through 2 realms in a row and directly reach the 2nd realm of the Rebirth Tribulation realm. Kong Shinmu sensed that his devouring power had been assimilated by the Black Dragon's consciousness, and there was still a little bit of it that hadn't completed its transformation. However, when he broke through to the Rebirth Tribulation realm, that last bit of devouring power directly transformed. Now, his devouring power and the speed at which it was devouring power had almost tripled from before. Originally, if an opponent at the level of absolute invincible realm used the Dragon Martial technique to attack Kong Shinmu, then Kong Shinmu could see the speed of the opponent's Dragon Martial technique and be able to devour about half of the opponent's power before the Dragon Martial technique hit him. However, now that the devouring power had transformed from devouring the power of nirvana to devouring the power of samsara, the devouring speed had increased by 3 times. This allowed him to completely devour the power of absolute invincible realm and use it for his own use. This was an incomparably terrifying transformation. However, it seems that the Black Dragon's consciousness is helping me by assimilating my devouring power. Kong Shinmu felt a little strange. Until now, the Black Dragon's consciousness still refused to communicate with him, and also refused to communicate with the power of the demon god Ancestor. However, he could see that the Black Dragon's consciousness seemed to have no intention of harming him, or rather, it had no intention of harming him for the time being. The transformation of the devouring power had increased Kong Shinmu's strength by more than 1 level. Now, he was truly qualified to fight against a powerhouse like the Dragon Emperor. he might not be able to reach the heavenly pivot region. However, his strength was at least twice as strong as before, which had a great impact on Kang Shinmu. Now, if he were to fight against the previous Black Leopard demon slaves, he could fight against 5 of them and kill them without any pressure. After all, the 5 Black Leopard demon slaves were only the most common Emperor-level demon slaves, equivalent to the first level of the Dragon Emperor's Divine Dragon Inheritance Blood Essence. In terms of the grade of Blood Essence, Kang Shinmu was only 1 level weaker than them, and the gap could already be made up by Kang Shinmu's means. When Kang Shinmu broke through to the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm and reached the 2nd level in one go, his strength skyrocketed. If I fight against the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang, I may not be his opponent, but if I fight against the Dragon Emperor Yan, maybe the Dragon Emperor Yan can no longer suppress me. Kang Shinmu was quite satisfied with his improvement. In addition, he also devoured and absorbed a lot of Dragon Mark energy this time, so that his Dragon Mark energy directly broke through from the level of the 9th level of the Dragon King. This was the side effect of the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. Because he was cultivating in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, when he gathered the surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth, he would also absorb a part of the Dragon Mark energy. Of course, Kang Shinmu devoured all of it. The Dragon Mark energy devoured in this way was the purest and flawless. If he could use more Phoenix Spirit Fire Stones, Kang Shinmu could even directly break through to the level of the Dragon Emperor. Unfortunately, even if there were more Phoenix Spirit Fire Stones, he could not use them repeatedly within a month, otherwise, he would accumulate fire poison. This time, 1 Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone is equivalent to about a year of cultivation. It's really timely. Kang Shinmu thought to himself, and his eyes flashed. This was the reward he received when he went to the battlefield of the 9 major races and killed a demon slave for the first time. In that case, if he could make greater contributions in the future battles and kill stronger clansmen of the 9 major races, wouldn't the reward be even more precious? Killing the clansmen of the 9 major clans and killing the servants of the 9 major clans were 2 completely different concepts. The protection points obtained would be 10 times more. As for the extra special reward given by the higher-ups, it would obviously be better than the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. As for what would be better than the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone, Kang Shinmu did not know. However, it was conceivable that once they could kill the clansmen of the 9 major races, it would be extremely beneficial for them. Unfortunately, this journey was too dangerous. Once the clansmen of the 9 major races appeared in person, it meant that the other party had the intention to kill him. This was the biggest crisis. Fortunately, I haven't used this Lingyun protection ring yet. Chapter 45-46. The defensive barrier condensed by the Lingyun protection ring could withstand up to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor's attack. In other words, it was in line with the current restrictions on the battlefield of the 9 races. This Lingyun protection ring was exchanged with Linghu Dai, after he killed a high-ranking devil general. It seemed like the exchange was too much of a coincidence. In other words, there definitely won't be anyone too strong on the battlefield within a year. The strongest attack of any opponent on the battlefield will be blocked by the Lingyun protection ring. As for the Lingyun protection ring, it can be used once every 7 days. It can absorb spiritual energy on its own. This heaven-grade dragon weapon is simply too comfortable. This Lingyun protection ring was useless for Linghu Dai, but it was just right for Kang Shinmu. Now, Jiang Shenwu could completely rely on Ling Yun's protective ring to run amok on the battlefield of the 9 great clans. If he encountered someone too strong, he could directly block Ling Yun's protective ring and then escape with the wind's shadow flowing flash. After using it once, the Lingyun protection ring could not be used again. It needed to absorb spiritual energy for 7 days before it could be used again. During this period, Kang Shinmu would return to the Longwu fortress and wait for the Lingyun protection ring to be used again. It seemed like this method was unique and foolproof. However, in reality, Kang Shinmu also thought of one thing. If it wasn't a servant of the 9 races, but a member of the 9 races, then he still had to be careful. Just like Sui, she would definitely have brought countless powerful weapons with her when she went out alone. If it was an expert using the heaven-grade desolate god demonic weapon, the void-ripping void magic blade, then it was still possible to break through Kang Shinmu's Lingyun protection ring. He couldn't be careless. However, with the Lingyun protection ring, his safety was definitely guaranteed. After thinking about this, Kang Shinmu left his palace to meet up with Xiao Yuhua and the others. With the help of the Phoenix Spirit Fire Rock, Xiao Yuhua and the others had made great breakthroughs. Among them, Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai had always been at the front and had already reached the 4th level of the Rebirth Tribulation realm. Ran Ran and Liang Xiao, like Kang Shinmu, were at the 3rd level of the Rebirth Tribulation realm. After all, Kang Shinmu's efficiency in absorbing the heaven and earth spiritual qi condensed from the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone was the highest. Therefore, he broke through 2 realms in one go and somewhat caught up. I have a hunch that the 5 of us will be able to enter the Heaven's Pivot District in the Academy competition next year. Liang Xiao was overjoyed. There are 9 places in the Heaven Pivot District, and our team will take 5? Xiao Yuhua, on the other hand, wasn't so optimistic. She shook her head and said, unless more than half of the 9 students in the Heaven Center District can reach the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and become a mentor of the Dragon Emperor, we won't be able to enter the Heaven Center District so easily. There was nothing wrong with saying that. However, this year's Academy competition had just ended, and it was still too early to think about next year's Academy competition. This time, we spent 3 days absorbing the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone and made some breakthroughs. It's about time for us to continue to the battlefield. Kang Shinmu said in a deep voice, let's go to the Dragon Martial Fortress first to understand the situation. In these 3 days, the first group of Dragon Martial practitioners who went out to explore should have returned. Everyone nodded in agreement. Ran Ran followed Kang Shinmu closely. Her figure was slim and alluring, especially when she was wearing a tight black dress, which showed off her exquisite figure. She whispered to Kang Shinmu, my Black Phoenix Heart Destruction has been cultivated to the Heaven stage. It was originally at the Dragon stage, but with the help of the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone, I suddenly broke through. Kang Shinmu's face lit up when he heard that. That's good news. The Black Phoenix Heart Destruction seems to be related to the power of the Phoenix. I didn't expect the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone to have such an effect. It's really amazing. In comparison, Kang Shinmu's progress in cultivating the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Art and Sunset Shadow Flowing Flash was not as fast as Ran Ran. After all, he had been wandering around for the past year, and had not focused on cultivating these 2 high-grade source dragon martial techniques. Ran Ran, on the other hand, had focused on cultivating the Dark Phoenix Heart Exterminating technique, and in just a year, she had directly broken through to the Dragon Realm. Now, with the help of the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone, she had broken through to the Heaven stage. Once a high-grade source dragon martial skill was cultivated to the Heaven stage, it was a qualitative leap. Coupled with Ran Ran's Black Jade Extreme Breaker power, her lethality was probably on par with Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai. One had to know that when the 2 of them raised their lethality with all their might, they were already outstanding among their peers. It was already very impressive that Ran Ran could be on par with them even though she was 1 level lower in cultivation. I still have a rising dragon marrow, and I just consumed it. I'm just waiting for the Black Phoenix Heart Destruction to break through to the Saint stage. Then, my battle prowess will be even stronger, Ran Ran continued. She saw that Kang Shinmu was happy, and she was happy too. However, as a woman, she could still keenly feel that after returning this time, Kang Shinmu seemed to be different from before. As for what exactly was different, she could not feel it. It was just that, she felt that Kang Shinmu's mind was not as focused as before. Sometimes, it would be a little erratic. Could it be because of the demon god race princess? As for what happened between Kang Shinmu and Su Yi in the end, Kang Shinmu did not tell the others. After all, this was a personal matter, and there was no need to tell them. If this matter would affect them, Kang Shinmu would definitely tell them in advance. Therefore, Kang Shinmu did not find anything wrong with Ran Ran. He nodded and said, "Keep it up. The situation is getting more and more serious. We must become stronger in order to have a foothold in such an environment." This was the truth. The five of them chatted as they walked toward the Emperor Shi formation. Along the way, they met an old acquaintance, White Scorpion Qian Bing. However, when she saw Kang Shinmu and the others, Qian Bing's face immediately turned pale. Then, she turned and quickly ran away. "This Qian Bing, why is she so afraid when she sees us?" Kang Shinmu felt a little strange. "Did something happen between you and her last year when I wasn't around?" Xiao Yuhua looked at Qian Bing's fleeing figure and said with a faint smile, "Nothing happened. It's just that Qian Bing's team encountered us once in the Void Crack battlefield. She brought people and wanted to attack us, but we taught them a lesson. From then on, Qian Bing could only take a detour when she saw us. Her entire team combined could not break through Ran Ran's defense." Haha. Chapter 45-47. No matter what, the matter with Qian Bing was over. Previously, when Kang Shinmu was not around, Qian Bing's group was beaten to a pulp. Now that Kang Shinmu was back, Qian Bing would definitely not dare to have any thoughts about Kang Shinmu's group. That was purely asking for trouble, and there was no chance of winning. Even if they launched a sneak attack during the battle, Qian Bing's group would not be able to do anything to Kang Shinmu, Ran Ran, and the others, as they were simply too weak. Their strength was too weak. Even if Kang Shinmu stood there and let her hit him, she would not be able to injure Kang Shinmu, let alone kill Kang Shinmu. As time passed, the overall strength of Kang Shinmu's group of 5 improved faster and faster. Compared to many other student groups in the 4 major dragon martial academies, it could be said that their group improved the fastest. Originally, they were only students in the Yuheng district, and Liang Xiao and Ran Ran had only joined the Dragon Martial Academy not long ago. Now, they had already stepped into the Tianxian district. It had only been a total of 2 years, and it could be said to be a great miracle. No one would believe it even if they said it. Originally, Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai only had the Dragon King's inherited blood essence, and they were at the 8th and 9th levels of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Now, they had the Dragon Emperor's 2nd level of inherited blood essence, and they were at the 4th level of the Samsara Tribulation realm. Their strength had increased by at least 10 times. The 5 arrived at the Emperor Shi formation, and they traveled through space. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the Martial Dragon Fortress. After returning to the Martial Dragon Fortress after 3 days, the 5 of them could already feel an extremely tense atmosphere. This atmosphere permeated the entire Martial Dragon Fortress, making everyone feel extremely stifled. "What's going on?" Kang Shinmu and the others exchanged glances, frowning. It seemed like something extraordinary had happened in the past 3 days, causing the atmosphere in the entire Martial Dragon Fortress to become tense and silent. The war is about to begin. Vaguely, Kang Shinmu seemed to hear people shouting around him. All along the way, he saw even more Dragon Emperor realm experts looking for companions, and they seemed to intend to head to the battlefield to fight their enemies. Some were gloomy, whereas some were burning with battle intent, and they seemed to be 2 extremes. Kang Shinmu was used to this kind of situation. He thought that it must be because the first batch of dragon warriors had sent out some bad news, which was why they were in such a situation. "Look, it's Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu and his team are the first to return from the battlefield. Moreover, they seem to have killed 5 demon gods." That's right, they did kill the demon slave and even obtained a special reward. Their cultivation realm seems to have increased by at least 1 level. It seems that the special reward this time is indeed extraordinary. Many people gathered around. Most of these people were Dragon King powerhouses. They were either students from the 4 Dragon Martial Academies or the Dragon Emperor country's Dragon Emperor powerhouses who had brought the Dragon King generals, marshals, and so on. In their eyes, Kang Shinmu was also an extremely powerful existence. Even a powerhouse at the Dragon Emperor level would not dare to say that they could easily defeat Kang Shinmu's team. It should be noted that even Great Liang's Dragon Emperor had now said that if he were to face Kang Shinmu's team of 5, it would be difficult to win. It should be noted that Great Liang's Dragon Emperor was now a powerhouse at the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor list. His combat power had long reached the level of the original Dragon Emperor mentor. On the Dragon Emperor list of the Dragon Martial Fortress, he was ranked in the top 100. Speaking of the Dragon Emperor list, it was a formidable list. It was a list of the combat power of all the Dragon Emperors in the Dragon Martial continent, including the 4 Dragon Martial Academy's Dragon Emperor mentors, as well as the recently rising Dragon Emperor powerhouses. Great Liang's Dragon Emperor was ranked 97th on the Dragon Emperor list. This was already a terrifying strength. It should be noted that there were dozens of Dragon Emperor mentors in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. The original Dragon Emperor mentors, as well as many genius students who had broken through to the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor list in the past 2 years, added together, there were already more than 100 of them. In other words, Great Liang's Dragon Emperor's strength was now enough to be a mentor in the Dragon Martial Academy. Many of the mentors in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies were not as strong as Great Liang's Dragon Emperor. Originally, Kang Shinmu did not pay much attention to the Dragon Emperor list. After all, he was too far away from the Dragon Emperor list, and he could not even reach the bottom of the list. But now, he could pay some attention to it. After all, Kang Shinmu was about to break through to the Dragon Emperor level of inheritance blood. Most importantly, as his cultivation level reached the 2nd level of the Rebirth Tribulation realm, his combat power was already comparable to many Dragon Emperor level powerhouses. In everyone's eyes, even Great Liang's Dragon Emperor, who was on the Dragon Emperor list, would find it difficult to defeat Kang Shinmu's team and would need to spend some effort. Not to mention the others. It could be seen that the overall combat power of Kang Shinmu's team was already extremely strong, even reaching the level of the Dragon Emperor list. Not to mention, the 5 people in Kang Shinmu's team had all increased their cultivation level by at least 1 level. In this regard, Kang Shinmu and the others naturally had a sense of propriety. Great Liang's Dragon Emperor said that just to prevent some powerhouses from targeting Kang Shinmu's team. In fact, if Kang Shinmu's team fought against Great Liang's Dragon Emperor, they would basically be defeated one by one, without any possibility of struggling. Even Kang Shinmu might not be able to block the opponent's attack. This was the strength of the powerhouses on the Dragon Emperor list. Of course, the current Dragon Emperor list represented the peak combat power of the Dragon Martial continent. It was definitely not so easy to get on the Dragon Emperor list. Kang Shinmu was well aware that he was at least 3 years away from the bottom of the Dragon Emperor list, and this was under the circumstance that he used the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone to save a year of cultivation time. I must get on the Dragon Emperor list within a year. Otherwise, after a year, the battlefield will be fully opened, and the 9 major races will send out powerhouses who have reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor list. At that time, it will be the real tragic time. If I can't get on the Dragon Emperor list within a year, then the full-scale battlefield after a year will have nothing to do with me, and I can only run away with my tail between my legs. Kang Shinmu thought in his heart, and his understanding of this was very clear. How difficult was it to get on the Dragon Emperor list within a year? But for Kang Shinmu, it was not impossible. The key was to see how many Guardian points he could earn in the battlefield of the 9 major races within a year. As long as everything went well, then he might really be able to get on the Dragon Emperor list within a year and become a powerhouse on the Dragon Emperor list. For the time being, the matter of the Dragon Emperor list was put on hold. Kang Shinmu said to the 4 of them, "Let's go to the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy first to understand the situation." Chapter 45-48 Longwu Fortress, Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy Office. Kang Shinmu rushed over with 4 people and found many students gathered in the office. It seems like the situation is really tense now. Kang Shinmu frowned slightly. He saw 9th young Master Gu and young Master Liang from the hidden Dragon Martial Artist family in the crowd. They were frowning and seemed to be at their wits' end. Both of them were in the second tier of the reincarnation realm. As for the grade of the divine dragon essence, they had not reached the level of the Dragon Emperor. They were still stuck at the 9th level of the Dragon King, unable to break through. This made them very uncomfortable. Originally, they came from the hidden dragon martial artist family and had a lot of cultivation resources in their family. However, after coming to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, they did not go to the Void Crack battlefield to fight. As a result, their progress was not as fast as the other ordinary students who desperately hunted demonic creatures. Their family had a lot of resources, but how could it compare to the Supreme Divine Dragon's investment in the Dragon Martial Continent in the past 2 years? Therefore, 9th Young Master Gu and Young Master Liang were feeling very uncomfortable now. They had not reached the level of the Dragon Emperor, so their combat strength was low. Going to the battlefield of the 9 races was simply courting death. After thinking about it, there was only one way, and that was to form a group with other students and go to the battlefield of the 9 races. Unfortunately, the battlefield of the 9 races was full of danger. It was even more difficult to hunt opponents and earn guardian points. With their strength, they could basically be declared eliminated. Unless there was a powerful dragon weapon forged by an expert in their family that could protect their lives, they would not be qualified to go to the battlefield. Moreover, even if they could protect their lives, it would be difficult for them to hunt opponents of the 9 races. Even if they were just slaves, there would be existences that were much stronger than them. It could be said that if they encountered opponents on the battlefield of the 9 races, there was a 90% chance that they would not be able to defeat them. Then there was no need to go, and this was the current situation of most students in the Yuheng district in the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. The Migres district, which was above the Yuheng district, was slightly better. Their strength was much stronger than the students in the Yuheng district. At the very least, they had inherited blood essence that had reached the level of the Dragon Emperor. If they formed a group, they would still be able to survive on the battlefield of the 9 races. Some who were skilled in special methods could even send messages to earn guardian points. Killing opponents wasn't the only way to earn guardian points. If they could discover some important information about the 9 great races and send it back, it would be very valuable. These kinds of scouts and patrollers were quite popular in the current Dragon Martial Continent. As a result, many people began to cultivate movement techniques and concealment-type origin Dragon Martial skills. Regardless of whether it was too late to cultivate these origin Dragon Martial skills, there wouldn't be any harm in cultivating these Dragon Martial skills. Young Master Gujiao, Young Master Liang, I remember that they are interested in Ran. Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. When he saw these 2 fellows, he raised his eyebrows slightly. Obviously, he did not intend to give them any face. The hidden dragon martial artist clans have sent many mid-level experts to the Longwu fortress recently. There are a total of 16 hidden dragon martial artist clans, and their experts combined are not weak. Xiao Yuhua reminded Kang Shinmu from behind. These 16 hidden dragon martial artist clans have many experts in their clans, and some even used to have super dragon ancestors. They are rich in resources. Now, the leaders of their clans are at least level 5 experts on the Dragon Emperor list, and there are even living super dragons. The current Dragon Monarch leaderboard does not include these 16 secluded dragon warrior clans. But now that the experts of these 16 hidden dragon martial artist clans have come to the Longwu fortress, I'm afraid that most of the faces on the Dragon Emperor list will change very soon. Xiao Yuhua said all this to remind Kang Shinmu not to provoke young Master Gujiao and young Master Liang. These 2 were the talented descendants of the Gu family and Liang family, and were highly valued. The hidden dragon martial artist clans had already advised these 2 fellows to fight in the Void Crack battlefield, but they did not listen and missed the best opportunity to improve themselves. They were really afraid of death, but now that the entire Dragon Martial Continent had reached a critical moment of life and death, no matter how afraid they were of death, they had no choice but to stand up. Only one's own strength was the most fundamental thing. Other than that, everything else was fabricated. I heard that some of the experts from the hidden dragon martial artist clans have participated in the Void Beast Hunt, but they rarely interact with others. They have their own circle, and even maintain some contact with the peerless divine dragon. Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. Fine, now is the time for the dragon martial artists to unite. I can't be bothered to find trouble with them. After saying this, he led Xiao Yuhua and the others to the corridor of the office, planning to find Linghu Dai. Linghu Dai was the Dragon Emperor instructor that Kang Shinmu had met at the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy, and they had a pretty good relationship. Other than her, there was Dean Yuyaji. As for the other Dragon Emperor instructors, Kang Shinmu was not familiar with them. He did not even know them when he saw them. Along the way, many dragon martial artist clans made way for Kang Shinmu when they saw him and his people. Young Master Gu Jiao and young Master Liang had been waiting for them, but when they saw Kang Shinmu and Ran Ran coming over, their expressions changed again and again. If it were their old selves, they might have stood up to mock Kang Shinmu and put in some good words for Ran Ran. Unfortunately, in the face of life and death, Kang Shinmu did not seem so despicable in their eyes. Instead, they felt closer to him. The 9 invading clans were too hateful. They really wanted to kill all the rebels of the Dragon Martial Continent and enslave the entire Dragon Martial Continent. In comparison, when they looked at Kang Shinmu, they felt that he was handsome. After all, he was a member of the Dragon Martial Continent like them. Therefore, when they saw Kang Shinmu, Ran Ran, and the others walk past, young Master Gu Jiao and young Master Liang did not say anything. They were so flustered that they did not dare to offend anyone. They had changed their arrogant and despotic attitude when they first arrived at Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy's office had a better atmosphere than the Dragon Martial Fortress outside. The atmosphere was not as heavy, but one could still feel the tension. The war is about to begin. A crisp female voice came from a room deep in the office's corridor. It was Linghu Dai. She sensed the arrival of Kang Shinmu and his people. Her voice came from the room. Kang Shinmu, come in with all of you. Yesterday, the first batch of 10 groups that went out to test the waters all returned. In the end, 3 groups all died, and 4 groups of dragon martial artists were seriously injured. Only your group and the other 2 groups killed their opponents and returned safely. This time, a total of 7 people died. It has only been 3 days. Therefore, the situation in the Dragon Martial Fortress is very critical. Chapter 45-49. Inside the room. In addition to Linghu Dai, there were several powerful dragon martial artists discussing something together. Seeing Kang Shinmu's group of 5 come in, these powerful dragon martial artists looked at him appreciatively. Among the dragon martial artist groups that returned safely, only you belong to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, and you killed 5 black leopard demon slaves. This is a good result. Linghu Dai said, the first 10 groups that participated in the battle this time didn't have any strong elites. The so-called elites are strong people who can challenge those of a higher level. This time, the 9 clans almost agreed in advance that they can only send slaves that are 4 levels higher than the strongest of your group. Previously, you were at the 3rd level of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm, so the Black Leopard Demon slaves you sent were at the 7th level of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. The reason why they exceeded the 4th level is mainly because the bloodline power of these slaves is not very strong, and they can only be considered to be at the 1st level of the Dragon Emperor. Therefore, even if their cultivation levels are higher than 4 levels, logically speaking, they should be evenly matched. Unfortunately, there are a few races that are eager for quick success, and directly gave their slaves some powerful weapons, causing us dragon warriors to be unable to defeat them in the end. Kang Shinmu finally understood what had happened before. It was just that he did not expect the situation to be so serious now. Among the 9 clans, a few clans had actually issued some weapons. Even if these weapons were used by the slaves, they could still challenge many dragon martial artists of a higher level, not to mention that their cultivation was several levels higher than the dragon martial artists. Of course, There were also those Dragon Emperor strong people who formed groups and attacked with the cultivation of the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation realm. Only these 2 groups of dragon martial artists returned safely, and they even killed the other party's slaves with the help of the 3rd and 4th level of the Dragon Emperor blood essence. Their gains were not small. Next, it will be the start of an all-out war. Linghu Dai, glanced at Kang Shinmu. In this war, we have almost no chance of winning against the 9 major races. The only thing we can do is to kill as many of their people as possible. The more outstanding our performance is, the more we can attract the attention of the supreme divine dragons of the dragon god's great world. Therefore, for the sake of the entire martial dragon continent, we can only fight to the death. Furthermore, even if it's for your own sake, you can only use this method to quickly grow stronger. These words made sense. Participating in the war against the 9 clans was also the only way for a dragon martial artist to become stronger. You can choose not to participate, but you will lose this opportunity. Once the 9 major races decide the winner, and one of the races enslaves the dragon warrior, the weaker the person, the lower the status. If he was strong and talented, he might even get some preferential treatment. It was not impossible that his family and the Dragon Emperor Kingdom would get preferential treatment. In any case, what Kang Shinmu wanted to do now was to improve his strength. We are discussing how to improve the survival rate of the students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy on the battlefield. Linghu Dai, pouted at the many powerful dragon martial artists in front of her. These were the Dragon Emperor instructors of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Among them, there were 4 women and 2 men. Including herself, there were a total of 7 people. These 7 people could be considered the strongest Dragon Emperor instructors in the entire Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy after Yuyaji. They were currently ranked in the top 30 on the Dragon Emperor leaderboard. Even Yu Tiancheng, Feng Ligei, Gu Yusheng, and the other new geniuses who were like the sun in the midday sky were far inferior to them in strength. Therefore, they were qualified to make decisions on behalf of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. As for where Yuyaji was, Kang Shinmu did not ask. He was not at that level yet. Although he seemed to be on good terms with Yuyaji, that was only because Yuyaji thought highly of him. In fact, the difference in strength between Kang Shinmu and Yuyaji was too great. They were not on the same level, and the things that they usually paid attention to were also completely different. You have the Lingyun protective ring that I exchanged with you, Linghu Dai, glanced at Kang Shinmu and said thoughtfully, since the 9 clans have given their slaves such powerful weapons, it would be unreasonable if we did not take out something decent. We plan to rent out the human-level Holy Dragon weapons. Anyone who leads a team to the battlefield of the 9 clans will be able to get a human-level Holy Dragon weapon for free, regardless of whether it is for survival or other purposes. The defense of a human-level Holy Dragon weapon is not inferior to the Lingyun protective ring. Therefore, with the human-level Holy Dragon weapon, they should be able to protect their lives. The key is that we can't give them the Holy Dragon weapon for free. We can only deduct it from the rewards if they kill some opponents from the 9 clans. This was a good idea. Kang Shinmu nodded. This was equivalent to letting the people use the Holy Dragon weapon first and then slowly returning it at a discounted price with the protection points earned. However, in this case, the Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy would have to bear the risk. If the students died on the battlefield, the human-level Holy Dragon weapon that they took would be equivalent to a wasted investment. Since the opponents killed them, they would definitely not leave the Holy Dragon weapon behind. They would definitely take it away. It was impossible to get it back. If there were heavy casualties, the Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy would also suffer a great loss. As if reading Kang Shinmu's thoughts, Linghu Dai, smiled and said, "Now, it is not that we can't afford to lose the human-level Holy Dragon weapon. Our most precious resource is actually you students. If even the students die, what's the use of leaving so many Holy Dragon weapons behind?" Linghu Dai's words caused Kang Shinmu to fall silent. The people behind Kang Shinmu were also somewhat silent. After all, the current situation could be said to be extremely grim. Against the 9 great races, the dragon martial continent was completely suppressed. If not for the 9 great races setting up rules to compete with each other, the martial dragon fortress would probably already be bathed in the flames of war. It was impossible for them to continue chatting and discussing countermeasures like this. If you plan to fight, we can also lend you a human-level holy dragon weapon as an example. Linghu Dai smiled as she looked at Kang Shinmu's group of 5. Furthermore, if you borrow a human-level holy dragon weapon in advance, you will get a 20% discount when you return it with the protection points. Do you want to consider it? In truth, Kang Shinmu's group of 5 already had human-level holy dragon weapons. The main reason was that the 2 demon commander demonic cores that Kang Shinmu had given them could be exchanged for a lot of demon hunting points. Chapter 45-50. It just so happened that the human-grade holy spiritual dragon weapons that Xiao Yuhua and the rest had weren't defensive. It was a good idea to borrow one for now. One had to know that Kang Shinmu's Lingyun protection ring was only a heaven-grade holy spiritual dragon weapon. Even though its defensive ability was strong, it could only be used once every 7 days. The other human-grade holy spiritual dragon weapons might not be as strong as Lingyun's protection ring, but the key was that they could be used continuously. Therefore, Linghu Dai and the rest were indeed thinking of ways to let the students survive this war. This was the first year of the war between the 9 races, so Linghu Dai and the other Dragon Emperor mentors couldn't participate. Once they did, they would be obliterated by the opponent's tyrannical power. One had to know that the people from the 9 races guarding the void crack were not to be trifled with. Many of them were at the level of the super mystical dragon, and even supreme experts could be mobilized at any time. How could the Dragon Emperor mentors from the 4 Dragon Martial Academies have the chance to violate the rules? If not for the Supreme Mystical Dragon fighting for a chance for the Martial Dragon Continent, the Martial Dragon Continent would have faced the joint invasion of the 9 races. Then let's choose a human-grade holy spiritual dragon weapon and set off. Kang Shinmu nodded and decided not to hesitate anymore. The situation was urgent, and there weren't many opportunities. If he set off earlier, he might be able to kill one more servant of the 9 races and obtain more cultivation resources to improve himself. Come with me. Linghu Dai walked out of the room alone and led Kang Shinmu and the rest to the treasure pavilion. The remaining Dragon Emperor mentors smiled helplessly as they watched Kang Shinmu and the rest leave. If they weren't born in this era and the dragon gods were in trouble and the void crack appeared, Kang Shinmu and the rest would have a very safe cultivation environment. Even though their cultivation speed wouldn't be as fast as now, it would be much safer. At the very least, until they reached the level of the Super Shinran, they would not have the chance to meet other races. Unfortunately, now, they had to grow through fighting. According to the current situation, the dragon martial artist groups that dared to go out to battle would most likely not be able to return safely. It was normal for there to be casualties. However, they didn't know that this was actually a good thing for Kang Shinmu. At least, it allowed him to understand more about the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon and gave him a chance to improve faster. Even if he had to face dangers that were dozens of times more dangerous, it was still worth it. After all, Kang Shinmu now had enough means to protect himself. Soon, the 5 of them followed Linghu Dai to the treasure house and began to choose their human-grade divine spiritual dragon weapons. There weren't many human-grade holy spirit dragon weapons, only about 20 in total. In addition to the earth-grade divine spiritual dragon weapons that Kang Shinmu had chosen, that was all the divine spiritual dragon weapons in Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. In the future, they probably wouldn't be able to replenish them because they were brought by the Supreme Shinran. Now that the Supreme Shinran had been stalled, it was impossible for them to come to the Dragon Martial Continent. We'll have to rely on you guys, Linghu Dai said with a smile. Linghu Dai said with a smile, if you want to obtain more divine spirit dragon armaments, you can only rely on your performance in the 9 races battlefield. As long as you can kill enough experts from the races behind you, you might be able to obtain rewards from the races behind us. Among those rewards are some divine spirit dragon armaments. Oh. Kang Shinmu was a little surprised. The races behind us can also take out divine spiritual dragon weapons as rewards? He was a little puzzled. After all, the demon god race only used demonic weapons, which could only be activated by the demon god's bloodline. Was it possible for the demon god race to take out divine spiritual dragon weapons to reward them? Of course. Linghu Dai smiled and said, outside of our dragon martial continent, there is an even vaster world. In that world, many races compete with each other and fight each other. Many times, they will seize weapons that don't belong to them. Whether it's the demon god race's demonic weapons or our dragon martial artists' dragon weapons, they all exist. These weapons are useless to those foreign races, but they will keep some precious weapons. In the future, they might have a chance to exchange them for weapons that are useful to them. After hearing Linghu Dai's explanation, Kang Shinmu suddenly understood. It turned out that the weapons of the various races on the battlefield were like prisoners. After capturing a prisoner, they would not be executed immediately. Instead, they would be kept and exchanged for their own race's captives that were imprisoned by other races. Unless there was a deep-seated hatred between the two great races, both races would keep the captives and the battle weapons that they obtained. It was the same now. It looks like the ancient Phoenix clan has a lot of divine spiritual dragon weapons. They are actually taking out these divine spiritual dragon weapons as rewards for us on the battlefield? Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. The ancient Phoenix clan's request was to kill the demon god race, the void human race, and the devil fiend race. Therefore, Kang Shinmu only needed to wear these three weapons to kill the other party's slaves. The special reward for killing the slaves should not be much. The Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone was only the first special reward. Therefore, it was used as an example to motivate the students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. But in reality, if they killed the slaves later on, the special reward might not be that good. Of course, if they could kill the members of these three races, the special reward would be amazing. The ancient Phoenix clan encourages us to kill the members of these three races. But correspondingly, the ancient Phoenix clan also wants to kill more dragon martial artists in this war. Even if we are students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, I believe that the ancient Phoenix clan will not be merciful to us when we enter the territory of the ancient Phoenix clan. It is said that the clan behind the South Deity Dragon Martial Academy wants to deal with the ancient Phoenix clan. It looks like they are exhausting each other, but in reality, the 9 races will win in the end. After all, their overall strength is much stronger than our dragon martial continent. Kang Shinmu thought of these things. No matter what, he decided to focus on the demon god race first. After all, the slaves of the demon god race were what the dragon martial continent called monsters. The monsters that lived on the dragon martial continent were originally the slaves of the demon god race. Kang Shinmu was more familiar with them, so it was naturally easier to deal with them. Let's choose the human-rank divine spiritual dragon weapons. Soon, Kang Shinmu and the others began to choose the human-rank divine spiritual dragon weapons. Of course, they mainly chose the defense-type divine spiritual dragon weapons. Their attack power was enough, but they could not rely on Kang Shinmu and ran for defense. Chapter 45-51. It was up to Xiao Yuhua to choose a suitable divine dragon weapon for herself. After all, it concerned her life, so Xiao Yuhua was very careful in her choice. In the end, she chose a human-level divine dragon weapon called the Flaming Feather Storm Ball. The Flaming Feather Storm Ball was a divine dragon weapon with both fire and wind attributes. The wind attribute power within it allowed the Laughing Language Flower to be activated more quickly, and its defensive power could be condensed more quickly. Her innate fire attribute power could also increase the defensive power of the Flaming Feather Storm Ball. Fast, strong. This was one of the criteria that Xiao Yuhua chose a divine dragon weapon for defense. As long as the defensive power was strong enough, it would be to her liking. In that case, I'll lend this Flaming Feather Storm Ball to your team. When you return with your harvest, you can redeem it with a 20% discount. Linghu Dai heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Xiao Yuhua had chosen the flaming feather storm ball. However, her expression immediately became extremely serious. You have to be careful when you go out this time. The 9 great clans should have started an all-out war. The competition between them is very intense. Although you can obtain some special rewards by killing opponents from the 3 great clans, the risk is also very high. No matter which clan you appear in, they will want to kill you and obtain the competition points of their respective clans. We understand. Kang Xinmu nodded solemnly. Then, they left the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. Next, Xiao Yuhua wanted to familiarize herself with the process of activating the flaming feather storm ball. She mainly wanted to adapt to the aura of this human-level divine dragon weapon. This human-level divine dragon weapon contained over 100 defensive patterns. Compared to other divine dragon weapons of the same level, it was considered relatively good. Xiao Bai and Liang Xiao also followed. They also needed to know how the defense of the flaming feather storm ball was activated, so that they could adapt to it in the upcoming battle. As for Kang Xinmu and Ran Ran, they did not go. The 2 of them cultivated the body-tempering dragon-type martial technique, as well as the high-grade origin dragon martial technique, the dark dragon filth control. Hence, their defensive abilities were already sufficiently strong. The flaming feather storm sphere was not prepared for them. Therefore, during this period, Kang Xinmu brought Ran Ran to the Dragon Emperor list in the center of the martial dragon fortress and looked at it. As for the Dragon Emperor list, Kang Xinmu had always heard of it, but he had never paid much attention to it. Today, he planned to take a look at the Dragon Emperor leaderboard to see which names he had seen or heard of on the Dragon Emperor leaderboard. First of all, experts of the Super Divine Dragon rank were not counted in the Dragon Emperor list. The reason why the Dragon Emperor list was called the Dragon Emperor list was that it only counted the strength of experts of the Dragon Emperor rank who inherited the essence blood. On the plaza in front of the Dragon Emperor list, many dragon warriors were forming teams. Not many people paid attention to the Dragon Emperor list. After all, they were already tired of looking at the Dragon Emperor list. Only Kang Xinmu had not come to look at the names on the Dragon Emperor list until now. Soon, he discovered that Linghu Dai's name was in 3rd place. Linghu Dai, is that strong? Jiang Shenwu sucked in a breath of cold air. Although he knew that Linghu Dai, was strong, he did not expect her combat strength to be able to rank 3rd on the Dragon Emperor list. This surprised him. As for the 1st and 2nd place, they were the 2 Dragon Emperor mentors from Donghuang Yangwu College and Northern Wilderness Dragon Martial Academy. They seemed to be experts of the older generation. Compared to Linghu Dai, it was obvious that they could not improve further. But Linghu Dai, was different. She could improve further and become a super divine dragon. Next, Kang Xinmu saw many mentors from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, including the medical mentor, Gong Yu. Gong Yu was the medical mentor from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. He had inherited the essence blood of the heavenly mandate Holy Light Dragon. His strength was actually ranked 23rd on the Dragon Emperor list. He should not be underestimated. Hey, Yu Tianchang, Feng Ligei, and Gu Yusheng are all ranked on the Dragon Emperor list. Emperor Qin is also here. Kang Xinmu soon saw a few familiar names. Yu Tianchang used to be the absolute number 1 in Donghuang Yangwu College. Now, she had become the Dragon Emperor's mentor. She rose rapidly as a latecomer and was already ranked 37th on the Dragon Emperor list. Feng Ligei was slightly worse. He was ranked 41st, Gu Yusheng was ranked 42nd. Both of them were students from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Emperor Qin was the 2nd strongest in Donghuang Yangwu College. Now, he was ranked 75th on the Dragon Emperor list. These people were much stronger than the Dragon Emperor of Daliang. Even the Dragon Emperor of Daliang was no match for them. They could finish off the Dragon Emperor of Daliang with one move. These were the strong ones from the hidden dragon martial artist families. They had not yet been ranked on the Dragon Emperor list. Just as Kang Shinmu was looking at the Dragon Emperor list, a group of young dragon martial artists dressed in luxurious clothes suddenly appeared on the square. Each of these young dragon martial artists had inherited blood essence of the Dragon Emperor level. Moreover, they had all reached the 5th level of the reincarnation realm or above. It could be said that the strength of each of these young dragon martial artists was comparable to Xiao Yuhua and the others. At least on the surface, their strength was definitely not weaker than Xiao Yuhua and the others. In fact, their combat strength could not be too weak. After all, they were the elites of the hidden dragon martial artist families. This Dragon Emperor list will soon be updated. At that time, half of them will be eliminated. This group of young dragon martial artists came near the Dragon Emperor list. They glanced at the Dragon Emperor list with contempt and began to discuss it casually. Yes, when the Dragon Emperor experts of our 16 families are ranked, at least half of them can be squeezed out. Someone nodded with a chuckle in agreement. This time, our group of 13 people will go directly to the battlefield of the 9 races. We will quickly improve ourselves and strive to set foot on the Dragon Emperor list as soon as possible. This group of young dragon martial artists consisted of 9 men and 4 women. They did not look weak. In this way, a team of 13 people could be said to be relatively safe. Of course, if they successfully hunted down any slaves or clansmen of the 9 races, then each of them would receive a lot less guardian points. Currently, most of the dragon martial artists went out to battle for survival. On the basis of survival, they hunted down opponents and earned guardian points. Therefore, it was normal for them to form a team of 13 people. Hey, isn't this the Kang Shinmu who has been very popular recently? Suddenly, someone looked at Kang Shinmu. Chapter 45-52. Kang Shinmu was indeed very famous in the Longwu fortress. As soon as these hidden dragon warrior families' powerhouses arrived at the Longwu fortress, the name that they heard the most was undoubtedly Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu ignored these people's attention. He merely glanced at them indifferently and turned to leave. These young dragon warriors from the hidden dragon warrior families were not weak, but they were all over 30 years old. Therefore, they were not qualified to join the Longwu Academy's recruitment. However, their strength was at least at the Fekta zone standard. In other words, on the surface, they seemed to be slightly stronger than Kang Shinmu and the others, but they were not much weaker. Of course, in reality, even if the 13 young dragon warriors joined forces to attack Kang Shinmu would not be afraid of them. Therefore, Kang Shinmu could not be bothered to have a verbal conflict with them and directly ignored them. Kang Shinmu turned to leave. Ran was a little displeased when she heard the mocking laughter behind her. Brother Jiang, what did you hear from them? What coward, what coward. Ignore them. Kang Shinmu said calmly, you're still in the mood to mock your own people at a time like this. I'm afraid you don't understand the situation. Once you're on the battlefield of the 9 races, you won't be able to escape if you encounter any danger. Even Kang Shinmu could not guarantee that he could avoid all dangers. Therefore, the most important thing to do in order to survive on the battlefield was to be prepared to deal with danger. However, these young dragon warriors from the hidden dragon warrior families were not prepared to face the danger of death at all. If they were really prepared for this, they definitely wouldn't have the mood to mock an unrelated person. Indeed, to that group of people, Jiang Shenwu was someone who had no relation to them. After all, no matter what happened to Kang Shinmu, no matter how famous he was, it had nothing to do with these people. What was the point of them mocking him so eagerly? It was only because they came from the hidden dragon clan that they felt that they were superior to others. They did not want Kang Shinmu to steal the limelight. If Kang Shinmu retorted, they could blow up the matter. It would be best if they fought. As long as they defeated Kang Shinmu, wouldn't their reputation skyrocket? Unfortunately, Kang Shinmu was not interested in them at all. In the face of a matter of life and death, a fight based on personal feelings was simply as laughable as a child playing house. Therefore, why should Kang Shinmu be angry with a bunch of kids? Moreover, once these kids went to the battlefield, it would be difficult for them to come back alive. Ran Ran pondered over Kong Shinmu's words and felt that Kong Shinmu's words made sense. She did not care about what those people were saying behind her back and left the scene with Kong Shinmu. They watched as Kong Shinmu left with Ran Ran. The 13 young dragon martialists from the Hidden World Dragon Martialist clan all sneered loudly. "Look, that's Kong Shinmu. He did not dare to talk back after being mocked by us. He turned around and ran away. I can't believe that a kid like him actually has the guts to go to the battlefield and kill his opponent from the Demon God clan. If a kid like him can make a contribution, then wouldn't we be even stronger? That Kong Shinmu doesn't seem to have inherited the essence blood of the Dragon Emperor. No matter how strong he is, how strong can he be? I heard that Zhu Wudi from Donghuang Yangwu College fought him to a draw on the sparring field. What a piece of trash. The great Dragon Emperor can't even beat the Dragon King. Many of the students from the 4 great dragon academies are just trash. It's just that the geniuses from our families haven't appeared yet. Otherwise, they wouldn't even have a chance. If we follow the Liang family's 4th young master, we will definitely be able to surpass Kong Shinmu and make a name for ourselves in the Longwu fortress." Everyone sneered as they complimented the strongest young man among them. The Liang family's 4th young master, Liang Jing. Liang Jing was now at the 7th level of the Samsara realm. As for the Dragon Emperor's essence blood, he had reached the 4th level of the Dragon Emperor's essence blood. He thought that his strength was already the strongest on the battlefield of the 9 races in the past year. Moreover, there were 12 dragon warriors from the hidden families who were only slightly weaker than him. Wouldn't they be able to dominate the battlefield? The 5th level of the Dragon Emperor's essence blood prevented him from entering this year's battlefield. Below that, Liang Jing was the strongest. At his level, if he walked on the Longwu continent, he would be invincible. The Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Emperor country and the Demon Emperor would be no match for him. If it weren't for the hidden dragon warrior families hiding from the world, Liang Jing would definitely not be unknown. Now that the hidden dragon warrior families were on the brink of life and death in the Longwu continent, these young genius dragon warriors were all excited. This was a chance for them to continue to rise. Gu Yusheng of the hidden Gu family stepped onto the Void Crack battlefield last year and actually jumped onto the Dragon Emperor list and became the 40th expert on the Dragon Emperor list. This was already the level of many of the older generation experts among the 16 hidden dragon warrior families. Therefore, in their view, there must be a lot of benefits to be gained from this 9-race battlefield. Liang Jing said with a smile, "You don't have to say anything more. Get ready. Tomorrow morning, we will go out and try to kill some experts." "Yes. Listen to Big Brother." Everyone respectfully replied, and 2 of the women revealed looks of worship and adoration. After Kong Shinmu and Ran Ran left, they waited not far away. Looking up at the starry sky above, the ferocious Void Crack must have been surrounded by the people of the 9-race battlefield. The dragon warriors of the Longwu continent would not be able to pass through. The battlefield was about to be officially opened. Once it was officially opened, it could be said to be a real cruel battlefield. As long as the 9 races did not send experts who were stronger than the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor list, it was not against the rules. Therefore, under the rules, as long as they could kill more dragon warriors, they would absolutely do anything. Therefore, the current situation of the Longwu continent was quite bad. First of all, the dragon warriors of the Longwu continent had to fight against the 9 races at the same time. In terms of numbers, they certainly could not compare to the other side, not to mention that the other side had many servants who did not care about their deaths. Secondly, in terms of weapons and combat skills, the Longwu continent was also lagging behind the 9 races. For the real members of the 9 races, the Divine Spirit Dragon weapon and the Divine Spirit Dragon martial skill were not treasures at all. Therefore, if they encountered the servants, they would have to use them. Chapter 45-53. Soon, Xiao Yuhua and the others got used to using the flaming feather sphere. Holy level dragon weapons were more convenient to use. One only needed to activate the dragon combat runes with their talents. Of course, if they fused with the dragon weapon, their power would be doubled. In other words, one would be able to unleash 50% of the dragon weapon's power with a new one. Unlike the previous dragon weapons, if one obtained a new dragon weapon, it would be great if they could unleash 30% of the dragon weapon's power. 50% and 20% sounded about the same, but in fact, the difference in power was doubled. As a result, holy-level dragon weapons were very popular. Generally speaking, it was not easy to fuse a dragon weapon with a dragon martial artist. For example, after Kang Shinmu obtained the Great Wilderness Demon Sweeping Sword, he had used it for a long time. In the end, he could only unleash 70% of the dragon weapon's power. He still lacked the last 30%. It would be too difficult to truly fuse with it. The Flaming Feather Sphere's attribute is compatible with my talent, so when I use it, it will be more powerful. I can use 60% of its power at the beginning. Xiao Yuhua came over and told Kang Shinmu. Let's go. Kang Shinmu had been looking at the starry sky for a long time. When Xiao Yuhua and the others came over, he planned to set off with them. The 5 of them transformed into dragons and flew out of the supreme boundary outside the martial dragon fortress. They flew directly into the starry sky. Leaving the supreme boundary meant that they were in a truly dangerous place. It was even possible that there might be some experts of the 9 races hiding outside the supreme ward to launch a surprise attack on them. Of course, the Void Human tribe might do this more often. After all, experts from the Void Human tribe were good at hiding and were natural assassin-type cultivators. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu and the others were on high alert and did not encounter any sneak attacks. After all, the battle had only just begun. The other side didn't have the guts to set up an ambush outside the Martial Dragon Fortress's barrier. After all, if they were to lay in ambush and attack, unless they could kill the Martialist Draconic who came out with a single strike, a large group of martialists inside the Martial Dragon Fortress would definitely attack. In that case, under the current mutual restriction of the 9 major races, there would be no experts who could withstand it and come here to ambush. Therefore, at this stage, it was still relatively safe outside the Supreme Barrier. Originally, Kang Shinmu did not expect that there would be people from the Seed race lying in ambush outside the Supreme Barrier. This was something that the consciousness of the demon god ancestor had reminded him of. It could be said that the demon god ancestor had helped him a lot so far. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Most of the information regarding the 9 great races was told to Jiang Shenwu by the consciousness of the demonic god ancestor. Jiang Shenwu had no idea how many tens of thousands of years the demonic god ancestor knew about the 9 races, so the information was clearly more detailed than the 4 dragon martial academies. Even the current supreme divine dragon might not have a better understanding of the 9 great clans than the demon god ancestor. Of course, many races were just small races when the demon god ancestor was still alive, such as the Talisman Aqua race and the virtual human race. They were very weak in the past and had only risen recently. The demon god ancestor did not have a very comprehensive understanding of these small races, but he was still very clear about some basic information. To him, this was common knowledge when adventuring in the chaotic battlefield. From now on, be on full alert. I'll fly at the front. Ran, you'll be at the back on the left. Xiao Yuhua, you'll be at the back on the right. After flying away from the Dragon Martial Fortress for a while, Kang Shinmu quickly gave the order. At this time, it was obvious that they had to fight in a small team to maximize their chances of survival and the highest chance of killing the powerhouses of the various races. Therefore, a unified team leader was a must. There was no doubt that among the 5 of Kang Shinmu's team, Xiao Yuhua and the other 3 were very obedient to Kang Shinmu's commands. They just had to listen to Kang Shinmu. After Kang Shinmu made the arrangements, everyone immediately did as they were told. Soon, Kang Shinmu guarded the front of the team, Ran was at the back on the left, and Xiao Yuhua was at the back on the right. The three of them had stronger defenses and were on the periphery, while Xiao Bai and Liang Xiao were protected in the middle. This made Liang Xiao feel a little uncomfortable. He was clearly a big man, but in the end, he still had to rely on Ran Ran and Xiao Yuhua to protect him. This really made Liang Xiao want to cry. However, under the current circumstances, he did not dare to think too much. Instead, he focused all his attention on the surrounding situation. In fact, no matter how nervous Liang Xiao was or how careful he was, he would not be able to discover the existence of the ambush in advance. If he wanted to avoid the ambush, he still had to rely on Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu's nightmare ink beast was still following him, but it did not appear. This fellow seemed to feed on heaven and earth spiritual qi. It did not need Kang Xinmu to feed it, which was very convenient. In any case, when fighting, he could always sense the nightmare ink beast's aura. Over time, Kang Xinmu even felt that the nightmare ink beast seemed to have become one with him. No one in the martial dragon continent could explain this feeling to him. The nightmare ink beast is a powerful demonic slave from the demon god race. The demon god race's ancestor said with some uncertainty, however, the nightmare ink beast demonic slaves have already disappeared from the demon god race. They have not appeared for a long time. To think that the martial dragon continent actually has them. I have heard some rumors about the nightmare ink beast, but I do not know if they are true or false. What rumors? Regardless of whether it was true or not, Kang Xinmu still wanted to hear it. The nightmare ink beast is originally a demonic slave specially bred by the demon god race to strengthen their perception of the surrounding void and their ability to conceal themselves. Generally speaking, the demon god race will let the nightmare ink beast follow a genius from the demon god race's royal family. The demon god race's ancestors' consciousness was a little uncertain. Then, this genius will always have the nightmare ink beast follow him, and his perception and concealment abilities will be enhanced. It is said that after 10 years, the nightmare ink beast will completely disappear. As for its abilities, it will fuse with the demon god race's genius and become a part of him. There's such a thing? Kang Xinmu's face sank when he heard this. He had not expected that the nightmare ink beast was originally bred by the demon god race to strengthen the concealment and perception abilities of the demon god race's royal family geniuses. It seemed that the nightmare ink beast was not officially following him. He had never heard of such a thing in the martial dragon continent. The main reason was that the nightmare ink beast was a demonic beast that was originally an enemy of the human race. Even if many martial artists saw the nightmare ink beast, they would spend a large sum of money to buy it and use its poison to create poison. Therefore, no one had ever considered befriending the nightmare ink beast. Chapter 45-54. From an emotional point of view, Kang Xinmu did not wish for the nightmare ink beast to disappear. It would be the same even if it retained its abilities. After all, the centipede ink beast had helped him too much. If not for the centipede ink beast, Jiang Shenwu believed that he would have died many times over. It is said that once this fusion begins, it is irreversible. You don't have to think too much about it. The demon god ancestors' consciousness indifferently transmitted, so you don't have to worry about it. Moreover, this fusion is voluntary by the nightmare ink beast, and no one can force it. So you should be happy and satisfied, right? Kang Xinmu could only smile bitterly. This kind of fusion was actually irreversible, and now, that enhanced perception and concealment had always been with Kang Xinmu, allowing Kang Xinmu to react more accurately in the face of danger. Who would have thought that an unexpected encounter back then would bring him such benefits? Unfortunately, if possible, Kang Xinmu would have preferred to be friends with the nightmare ink beast. But now, Kang Xinmu had no idea when the nightmare ink beast had begun to fuse with him. He had not even sensed it at all. The last time he had seen the nightmare ink beast, he had already forgotten when it had happened. Shaking his head, Kang Xinmu did not think too much about the nightmare ink beast. He was now on the battlefield of the 9 great races, and a slight distraction might cause him to miss an opportunity or even bring about a life-threatening crisis. The 5 of them formed a formation and gradually moved into the void. At the same time, more teams were preparing to set off on the Martial Dragon Fortress, planning to fight for the Martial Dragon continent, or perhaps for themselves. In short, no matter who they were fighting for, there were many teams of Martial Dragon warriors ready to set off. This included Liang Jing's team of 13. Their overall strength was very strong. Previously, in Jiang Shenwu's opinion, even if the 13 of them joined forces to attack, Jiang Shenwu would not be afraid. That was the truth. However, there was a condition for that. That was, he would have to use all of his strength to defend. Otherwise, they would have been easily defeated by the 13 of them. Among them, the strongest was Liang Jing. He alone possessed a very strong strength. To Kang Shinmu, it was not difficult to defeat him. However, he would need to put in a lot of effort. Furthermore, Liang Jing might have a trump card or a divine dragon weapon. Liang Jing's group of 13 had originally planned to set off tomorrow, but seeing that Kang Shinmu's group of 5 had already set off, they also announced their departure. They did not intend to lag too far behind Kang Shinmu's group. Right now, they were very arrogant, but there was a reason for them to be arrogant. This time, they were representing the hidden families, and every single one of them was carrying a divine spiritual dragon weapon. This was the confidence of a hidden family. Following closely behind Liang Jing's team, many other dragon warrior teams also chose to set off. This time, they were basically in groups of about 10 people. Many teams of 3 to 5 people in the past had now grouped together in order to maximize their chances of survival. After all, the most important thing now was to stay alive. Only by staying alive could they think about hunting the opponents of the 9 races. Whether they were slaves or clansmen, they were not so easy to deal with. For a moment, the Martial Dragon Fortress was mobilized. At least 20 teams had directly thrown themselves into the void. This was already quite a large scale. It should be known that there were only about 3,000 to 5,000 dragon warriors in the entire Martial Dragon Fortress, and at least 200 to 300 of them had reached the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor and were unable to go to battle. In other words, these 20 teams had already taken up 1/10 of all the dragon warriors. This was what Kang Shinmu had thought before, the lack of experts in the Martial Dragon continent. In fact, many people were not really experts. As long as they reached the Yuheng district, they could step into the Martial Dragon Fortress. However, if the Yuheng district students were to enter the battlefield, they would probably die. Some of the dragon warriors with stronger concealment abilities also set off alone. With their concealment abilities and speed, they planned to go out and scout for information. This was the source of their guardian points, and it was relatively safe. At the same time, if they encountered any danger, they would be isolated and helpless. It could be said that danger and opportunity coexisted. Kang Shinmu did not think too much about it. In short, on the battlefield, the battle between the two sides had completely begun. The members of the 9 great clans were probably hiding and observing the movements of the Martial Dragon Fortress. Seeing so many dragon warriors attacking together, how could they bear it? For a time, the 9 great clans also began to get busy. At the same time, no one in the 9 great clans, including most of the dragon warriors in the Martial Dragon Fortress, knew that a group of Demon Emperor experts had come from the defensive layer of the Martial Dragon Fortress. This group of Demon Emperor level experts had a mysterious mission on their shoulders. They had volunteered to come forward to protect the entire Martial Dragon continent, and they were demon slaves of the demon gods. They would go to the battlefields of the other 8 clans besides the demon gods to stir up trouble. In any case, the predecessors of the demon beasts were demon slaves of the demon gods. Many of the demon beasts' bloodlines had evolved from the demon slaves' bloodlines. Moreover, because not too much time had passed, these bloodlines were no different from those of the demon slaves. The only difference was in the way they thought. The demon slaves of the demon gods were enslaved and completely obeyed the commands of the demon gods. They did not have the ability to think for themselves, or rather, their intelligence had been sealed, not because they had no intelligence. But the demon beasts of the martial dragon continent were intelligent. When they were born, they were not sealed with intelligence, nor were they sealed with obedience, so they had the ability to think for themselves. Because of this, they did not want their descendants to continue to be demon slaves of the demon gods and completely lose their sense of self. They had come forward this time to stir up trouble on the battlefield. The 9 great clans attacking the martial dragon continent together? Okay, I will pretend to be demon slaves of the demon gods and stir up some trouble for you, so that the demon gods will become the target of the other 8 clans. In this way, the pressure on the martial dragon continent would definitely be much better. From the beginning of the war, both sides were very clear that this was not a simple fight. The secret competition between the two sides could greatly affect the overall situation. As for the competition between the supreme experts of the 9 great clans and the dragon gods, it could completely determine the fate of the martial dragon continent. Chapter 45-55. Kang Shinmu and the other 4 turned into dragons and flew in the air, keeping an eye on their surroundings. They were flying towards the area under the jurisdiction of the demon god tribe. If there were no accidents, only the demon god tribe would appear in this area. Not long after, Kang Shinmu and the others arrived at the place where they killed the 5 black leopard demonic slaves. The surroundings were still quiet, as if nothing had happened. However, after Kang Shinmu merged with the Mo Wu beast, his senses were strengthened. He could vaguely sense the aura of some demonic beasts being released from afar. The aura of these demonic beasts was very faint, and they were quite far away. If not for Kang Shinmu's strong senses, he would not have sensed them at all. There are demonic beasts, but they don't dare to come over. Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice. The cultivation of these demonic beasts did not seem to be very high. In terms of strength, they were only equivalent to the students of the Yuheng District's Dragon Martial Academy. They were proficient in concealment techniques. Kang Shinmu pretended not to notice them and continued forward. The group of demonic beasts carefully approached Kang Shinmu and the others, as if they wanted to check on Kang Shinmu and the others from a relatively safe location. It was a pity, just when they were within a certain distance. The other party probably thought that this was a safe distance, but Jiang Shenwu's divine dragon body suddenly shuttled through the air, using the blade's shadow flowing sunset flash. This source dragon martial skill brought him several tens of thousands of zhang in an instant. Immediately after, a terrifying power whizzed around Kang Shinmu. 6 pitch-black dragon breaths of the void dragon sky protruding break swept out in 6 different directions. The void dragon sky protruding break was a low-level origin source dragon martial technique. However, Kang Shinmu's current strength was extremely strong. The eruption of the devouring power was not something that an ordinary Yuheng district could withstand. There were 6 demonic slaves hidden in this place. At this moment, they were all killed by Kang Shinmu in one move. Take the demonic cores. Without any hesitation, Kang Shinmu took the demonic cores of the 6 demonic slaves. These 6 demonic slaves were shadow snake demonic slaves. They were famous for their concealment abilities. Unfortunately, they encountered Kang Shinmu, and any concealment methods were useless in front of him. In terms of concealment and perception, the Mo Wu beast far surpassed the shadow snake demonic slave bloodline. Jiang Shenwu extended his devouring power and took away the demon cores of the 6 shadow snake demon slaves. These demon cores were around the 4th level of the reincarnation tribulation realm and were not very valuable. The 6 of them added up was about the value of the demon core of the 7th level black leopard demon slave. 6 monster cores compared to 1 monster core. From this aspect, it could be seen that a powerful dragon martial artist could obtain a lot more guardian points on the battlefield of the 9 races. Dragon demonic warriors with slightly weaker strength would find it difficult to earn enough points to exchange for items of the divine spirit dragon weapon and the divine spirit dragon martial skill. Even with Kang Shinmu's current strength, it would be very difficult to earn enough points to exchange for items of this level. He would need to spend a long time and kill enough demonic slaves in order to collect so many guardian points. Kang Shinmu had to become stronger. If he could kill an opponent at the level of the Black Panther demonic slave in one move, then the speed of earning guardian points would be much faster. Kang Shinmu took away the 6 demonic cores, and then displayed the wind shadow flowing flash, quickly returning in front of Xiao Yuhua and the others. Be careful, the demonic slaves should be making their move soon. Kang Shinmu said in a deep voice. The 6 hidden shadow snake demonic slaves had been observing them for a long time. They must have called for stronger demonic beasts to come. Since the 5 Black Panther demonic slaves were unable to do anything to Kang Shinmu and the others last time, the opponents that appeared this time would definitely be stronger than the 5 Black Panther demonic slaves. Just as Kang Shinmu's voice fell, suddenly, there was a void in front of them, followed by several figures with a cold aura, directly pouncing on Kang Shinmu. It's the Emperor-level demonic slaves at the 9th layer of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. 3. Kang Shinmu's face changed slightly. These 3 Emperor-level demonic slaves all had the bloodline of the Ice Bat. They had the ability to infuse the ice bloodline into the sound waves to attack the opponent. At this moment, when they just appeared, everyone's ears seemed to hear a burst of dizzying sound, and it seemed that the power of ice had frozen in their ears. The tyrannical power suddenly made the 5 people a little flustered. However, they were still very experienced in combat. Kang Shinmu immediately burst out the defensive posture of the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body technique, and the vigorous power of the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body covered Kang Shinmu's body. At the same time, the devouring power had already burst out in all directions, immediately devouring the waves of ice sound waves. Wind Snow Dragon Pattern Stone. Kang Shinmu immediately activated the Earth-level Divine Dragon Weapon, using the devouring power to transform it into devouring power, and then directly burst out the Wind Snow Storm. At the same time, Xiao Yuhua and the others did not hesitate. Xiao Yuhua directly activated the Flaming Feather Gale Ball, while Xiao Bai and Liang Xiao fully activated their respective defensive dragon martial skills to help Ran Ran resist the sound waves. As for Ran Ran, she completely relied on her physical body to resist the sound waves. Ran Ran's slender black dragon body had already been cultivated to an extremely tough state. These sound waves containing the power of ice couldn't cause much damage to her at all. However, because the 3 ice bats were powerful existences at the 9th level of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm, even one of them could easily kill Ran Ran and the others in a one-on-one fight. So now, it was completely Kang Shinmu who alone blocked most of the attacks, so Ran Ran and the others could barely resist them. As long as I follow Kang Shinmu, every opponent is always this extreme. Xiao Yuhua smiled bitterly. She felt that she could not hold on for much longer, but most of the attacks were still blocked by Kang Shinmu. From this, it could be seen how tyrannical the Ice Bat Demon Slave was. The main thing was that the 9th level of the Reincarnation Tribulation Realm was much stronger than the previous 7th level Black Leopard Demon Slave. One must know that they had only increased their cultivation by 1 level after obtaining the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone this time. However, the opponents this time were 2 levels stronger than before, so it was normal for them to feel some pressure. I'll deal with 2, you guys work together to deal with 1. Kang Shinmu's Wind Snow Storm burst out, and the 108 offensive battle runes of the Wind Snow Dragon Pattern Stone were all activated at this time. Kang Shinmu had just obtained the Wind Snow Dragon Pattern Stone not long ago, so he could only unleash half of its power. However, this half of its power was already enough to double the lethality of his attack. Chapter 45-56. While unleashing the Blizzard Blast, Kang Shinmu also used the Void Dragon Sky Raising Strike. Regardless of whether it was useful or not, it was better than nothing. It was said that Bat-type demonic slaves had strong offensive abilities, but weak defensive abilities. He wondered if that was true. After unleashing the 2 attacks, Kang Shinmu carefully observed the battlefield. He discovered that the 2 frost bats, who were shrouded in the Blizzard Blast, were in a sorry state even though they had high cultivation realms. That was because the Blizzard Blast was equivalent to the Divine Dragon's martial technique. If not for the fact that the two Frost Bats were of the Frost attribute and had a strong resistance against the Frost attribute, they would have been injured by the Blizzard Blast. What a pity, Kang Shinmu's face darkened. He quickly unleashed his devouring power and continued to devour the energy released by the three Frost Bats. The three Frost Bats had received orders to kill Kang Shinmu no matter what. Hence, the three Frost Bats ignored Xiao Yuhua and the other three and launched powerful demonic techniques at Kang Shinmu. The endless frost formed an even more violent sound wave that swept towards Kang Shinmu. Due to the special nature of the sound wave, even if they only attacked Kang Shinmu, the sound wave attack would spread to the surroundings and attack Xiao Yuhua and the other three. Fortunately, the four of them were not too familiar with the sound wave attack at the beginning. Now that they were familiar with it, it became easier to defend against the sound wave attack. Help! Seeing that Kang Shinmu was surrounded by three Frost Bats, Xiao Yuhua and the other three's expressions changed. It seemed like Kang Shinmu had become a great enemy of the demon god race. The four of them each launched an attack at one of the Frost Bats. Divine Radiant Sacred Feather, Phoenix Dance burns the 9 heavens. Xiao Yuhua used the human-level Divine Dragon weapon she had exchanged previously, the Divine Radiant Sacred Feather. Immediately, a layer of golden feathers covered her Divine Dragon body like burning flames. Then, she looked as though she was on fire. At this moment, any fire attribute attack she cast would be more than doubled in strength. This was because the Divine Radiant Sacred Feather was a power that was extremely compatible with her talent. Furthermore, she had already possessed the Divine Radiant Sacred Feather for half a year, so she could already unleash 70% of its effects. At this moment, the entire place seemed to be on fire. Phoenix Dance burns the 9 heavens. The dancing flames, which seemed to want to burn everything in the world, shrouded the ice bat that was closest to her and set it ablaze. Myriad Dragon Mystic Ice Saber Chi. At the same time, Xiaobai also unleashed her strongest attack. This young girl transformed into a white divine dragon, and her entire body was surrounded by a burst of 10,000 dragon mysterious ice blade chi. This was not a dragon martial skill, but a human-level Holy Spirit dragon weapon. This Holy Spirit dragon weapon did not have a physical body. It was just a wave of saber chi that was condensed into a Holy Spirit dragon weapon. It possessed extremely cold ice attribute power. Just like how the Divine Radiant Sacred Feather enhanced Xiaobai, this 10,000 dragon mysterious ice blade chi was also extremely important to Xiaobai. In addition, her ice-splitting skybreaking slash had already broken through to the sacred tier. At this level, when her ice-splitting skybreaking slash was unleashed, it seemed as though the surrounding void had frozen. The 4th tier of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm, the 2nd tier of the Dragon Emperor's Inheritance Essence Blood, coupled with the Holy Spirit Dragon Weapon and the Sacred Dragon Martial Skill, Xiao Bai's battle prowess far exceeded that of the Dragon Martial Artists of the same realm as her. In terms of the lethality of the Dragon Martial Skill, she could completely kill an opponent at the 6th tier of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. This was also a battle that was 2 levels above her. The Ice Bat demonic slave in front of her had a weaker defense. Furthermore, it had focused all its energy on killing Kang Shinmu. At this moment, it really did not guard against Xiao Yuhua and the other 3. Previously, when they were dealing with the Black Panther demonic slave, they did not feel too much pressure. They also did not use their respective human-level Holy Spirit dragon weapons. Therefore, the demon gods did not know the extent of the attacks of Xiao Yuhua and the other 3. In comparison, although their defense was not strong, when Jiang Shenwu attracted the attacks for them, they could launch an explosive attack. That was definitely an extremely terrifying thing. Blood Exploding Pearl, Dragon Blood Meteor Explosion Technique. Not to be outdone, Liang Xiao displayed the human-level Holy Spirit dragon weapon he had exchanged. Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy had prepared human-level Holy Spirit dragon weapons for the dragon martial artists of various attributes. Although there were not many, as the first batch of students to exchange for Holy Spirit dragon weapons, Xiao Yuhua, and the other three had exchanged for Holy Spirit dragon weapons that matched their attributes. It was the same for Liang Zhao's blood-exploding pearl. This blood-exploding pearl could burn the dragon blood in his body and increase his explosive strength. Regardless of whether it was the blood-exploding pearl, the dragon blood meteor explosion technique, or the 9 heavenly dragon blood explosion technique that he cultivated, these source dragon martial arts techniques, and the Holy Spirit dragon weapon were all techniques that would harm his body. Therefore, Ran had even privately imparted the dark dragon imperial filth technique to him. This allowed him to recover faster after he damaged himself and continue to attack. His fighting style could be said to be the fighting style of selling his blood. As the power of the blood-exploding pearl was released, the dragon blood in his body began to burn. As the dragon blood burned, the power of his talent began to skyrocket. In just a short period of time, his aura had climbed to a peak that even surpassed Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai. At this peak, he erupted with the dragon blood meteor explosion technique. The dragon blood meteor explosion technique that had been cultivated to the Holy Spirit realm erupted with terrifying power. Countless scarlet dragon blood's talent power exploded on the ice bat that Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai were attacking. The incomparably powerful destructive power tore apart many parts of the ice bat's body. The entire ice bat let out a roar and erupted with even more violent sound waves. Unfortunately, the majority of its sound wave attack was blocked by Kang Xinmu. To Xiao Yuhua and the rest, it didn't have much of an impact. Next, it was Ran's turn. She had cultivated the Dark Phoenix Heart Execution and had already reached the heaven rank. She had also consumed the Rising Dragon Marrow and was only short of cultivating to the Holy Spirit realm. Moreover, she had exchanged for a human rank Holy Spirit Dragon weapon with Xiao Yuhua and the rest. This Holy Spirit Dragon weapon was called Darkness Curtain. It was a human rank Holy Spirit Dragon weapon that leaned towards defense. This Darkness Curtain was a little similar to Kang Xinmu's devouring power. It could open up a light curtain for defense and absorb all kinds of energy in the surroundings. Then, it would erupt and feed it back to Ran, increasing the explosive power and lethality of her dragon martial technique. This enhancement was similar to the devouring power. The more energy she absorbed, the more lethality she could erupt with. Chapter 45-57. After Liang Xiao launched his attack, Ran was not to be outdone. The power absorbed by the Dark Curtain was completely fed back to her, allowing her to integrate it into the Dark Phoenix Heart Destroyer's origin dragon martial technique. The next moment, the Dark Phoenix Heart Destroyer's power traversed the void like a pitch-black phoenix. With a sharp force, it pierced the Frost Bat's body. The Frost Bat was already dripping with blood. After being attacked by Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai's ice and fire powers, followed by Liang Zhao's dragon blood meteor burst, it was covered in wounds. At this moment, the Dark Phoenix Heart Destroyer's power directly penetrated one of the wounds and blasted into its body. A terrifying lethality erupted from the Frost Bat's body, causing its huge bat body to explode. Countless blood-red ice crystals flew out. As the Frost Bat died, the power in its body condensed into ice crystals. Stained with its blood, the ice crystals turned scarlet and flew around. The first Frost Bat was instantly killed by the combined attack of the four. The biggest reason was the Frost Bat, or rather, the demon gods did not take Xiao Yuhua and the other three seriously at all. They did not expect the four of them to kill an Frost Bat with their combined attack. The demon gods had miscalculated one point. The attacks of the three Frost Bats were completely unable to break through Kang Xinmu's defense. This was because Jiang Xinwu's cultivation realm had directly risen by 2 levels this time. Furthermore, he had also broken through from the Nirvana Tribulation realm to the Rebirth Tribulation realm. Under such circumstances, the Frost Bats were similar to the Black Leopard demon slave. To Kang Xinmu, the pressure he had to endure to defend against them did not change much. In fact, it was even easier than the Black Leopard demon slave's attack. After the first Frost Bat was killed by the 4 of them, the next 2 Frost Bats were needless to say. In the end, they still wanted to escape. However, Kang Shinmu chased after them with the wind's shadow flowing flash. Even the extremely fast frost bats could not escape. The 5 of them worked together to kill the 2 frost bats. In fact, if one of them had held back Kang Shinmu while the other 2 dealt with Xiao Yuhua and the other 3, they might have had a chance. After all, Xiao Yuhua and the other 3 had mainly developed their offensive abilities. Their defensive abilities were relatively weak. They might not have been able to withstand the full attack of even one frost bat. After the 3 frost bats were killed, their demon cores were all taken by Kang Shinmu. This time, Jiang Shenwu wasn't the only one to kill it. Although Jiang Shenwu's devouring force was powerful, it had to be said that it was too slow. In a battle of similar levels, it was far from being as direct as Xiao Yuhua and the others. The combined destructive power of Xiao Yuhua and the other 3 was much stronger than Jiang Shenwu's. Even with the enhancement of the Blizzard Dragon Vein Stone, Jiang Shenwu's current attack power was still inferior to the 4 of them. After all, Kang Shinmu had not cultivated any high-grade origin source dragon techniques. Moreover, they had cultivated high-grade origin source dragon techniques to the heaven or sacred grade. In this aspect, Kang Shinmu could not compare to them. The harvest this time is not bad. Let's split it evenly, Kang Shinmu said with a smile. However, at that moment, a sudden laughter was heard from the void beside them. Huh, not bad, not bad. To think that there would be a talent like you in the current Dragon Martial continent. This was a young man's voice. It sounded rather demonic and did not seem like a good person. Following that, 3 figures walked out from the void. They seemed to have been nearby, but they only appeared now. The appearance of these 3 figures caused Kang Shinmu's expression to change. He had fused with the powerful perception of the Nightmare Ink Beast, but he actually could not sense their presence. Are they from the demon god race? Kang Shinmu's expression darkened. That's right, we are indeed from the demon god race. The leader of the 3 voices was wearing a red cloak, a black short-sleeved shirt, and scaled leg armor. His blood-red hair fluttered in the wind, and he looked very handsome. However, there was an obvious trace of evil in his eyes. The leader was the evil prince from the demon god race. He had the Duke bloodline of the demon god race, and the bloodline of an ancient demon god flowed in his body. He was extremely powerful. His cultivation was at the 7th level of the reincarnation tribulation realm, and he was considered one of the younger generation. Moreover, his bloodline inheritance was at the 4th level of the martial emperor realm. This meant that the evil prince had just reached the level stipulated by the 9 great races battlefield. If he was a little stronger, he would not be able to fight on this battlefield. However, Kang Shinmu looked at the 2 figures behind the evil prince. They looked like bodyguards. With a glance, he could tell that they were at the peak of the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation realm. There were some demon patterns on their faces, and the grade of the essence blood inheritance in their bodies was at least at the 9th level of the martial emperor realm. Are they bodyguards? But under the rules, even if the evil prince were to fight, these 2 bodyguards would not be able to do anything. No. Kang Shinmu suddenly remembered something. This battlefield was under the surveillance of the 9 great races, but the Martial Dragon Fortress did not have the ability to monitor the entire battlefield. As long as the other party killed all the Martial Dragon warriors, the Martial Dragon Fortress had no right to cause trouble for them. Of course, if they violated the rules, they would still be under some pressure. After all, the rules were set by the 9 great races. If one of the races violated the rules, the other 8 races had the right to remove that race from the competition. This calmed Kang Shinmu down a little. Therefore, even if the evil prince had powerful bodyguards behind him, they would not take the initiative to attack unless the evil prince was in danger. This was the last line of defense for the evil prince's life. It was clear that the evil prince had a very high status. Even at the risk of losing the competition for the Martial Dragon continent, the demon gods would not allow anything to happen to him. I am the evil prince of the demon god race. I think you are Kang Shinmu. Mr. Yao Xia sized up Jiang Shenwu and the four people behind him. His eyes flickered with a strange light as he said, and you beauties, your talents aren't bad either. The battle prowess you displayed when you killed the frost bat just now is enough to make you the top geniuses in our Duke's mansion. I admire you very much. If you are willing to work for the demon god race, we will provide you with sufficient cultivation resources to help you break through to a higher level. When he said this, Kang Shinmu finally understood what he was thinking. Right now, the 9 great races were in a competitive situation. They needed to compete to see who could kill the most martial dragon warriors. Therefore, in this situation, if they had a powerful martial dragon spy, it would be much more convenient for them to act. Most importantly, the evil prince felt that within this year, under the circumstances that experts with 5th stage martial emperor bloodline could not step onto the battlefield, Kang Shinmu should be the strongest martial dragon warrior on the battlefield. Chapter 45-58. When Jiang Shenwu heard the other party's words, he started to ponder. It seemed like the evil prince wanted to cooperate with him. As for the purpose of the cooperation, it must be for him to secretly kill the martialist dragon and then give the credit to the demon god clan. However, given the current situation, Kang Shinmu naturally wouldn't make a move against the martialist dragon. After all, it was a matter of life and death for the entire martial dragon continent. If he killed the martialist dragon instead, wouldn't he be digging his own grave? Don't be fooled by young noble evildoer's words. He was willing to provide Jiang Shenwu with sufficient resources so that he could advance to a higher cultivation level. However, Jiang Shenwu believed that once the demon god tribe emerged victorious in this competition 3 years later, he would be abandoned. This young master evil was just using him to his advantage. The evil prince, are you trying to use us? Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes. You have a good plan, but, as long as you show me enough sincerity, I might be willing to cooperate with you. Oh. The evil prince was a little surprised to hear Kang Shinmu's words, and the corners of his lips curled up. Even Ran, Xiao Yuhua, and the other 2 were surprised to hear Kang Shinmu's words. However, they understood Kang Shinmu well enough that Kang Shinmu wasn't the kind of person who would betray the martial dragon continent. Therefore, although they were puzzled, they didn't say anything. My sincerity is sufficient. The evil prince said calmly, as long as you bring me the dragon heart bone of your martialist dragon, I will give you 2 sets of demon slave demon cores of the corresponding level. How about it? Don't worry, I'm a genius of the Duke's residence. There's no need for me to lie to you. The dragon heart bone was taboo to the martialist dragon warriors, and it was rarely mentioned. This was a condensation of power in the body of a dragon warrior, similar to the demon core of a demon beast or the demon core of a demonic creature. It was the strongest dragon bone in the body of a dragon warrior, located near the heart. Dragon blood flowed in the body of a dragon warrior, but there was no existence similar to a monster core or a devil core. The core of its power was gathered in the dragon heart bone. The dragon heart bone of a dragon martialist could only be extracted after death. Otherwise, once the dragon heart bone was extracted, the dragon martialist would lose all its power. Therefore, the dragon heart bone was the same as the demon core and the devil core. It could represent the strength of a dragon martial artist. The other party meant that if Kang Shinmu killed a 5th stage rebirth tribulation dragon warrior, the other party would give him 2 demon cores of the corresponding level. This deal seemed very worthwhile, but only dragon martial artists possessed the dragon heart bone. Moreover, the demon god clan wasn't the only one that possessed demonic cores. The demon god clan would definitely use the demonic cores of their slaves to exchange for them. If that was the case, if Kang Shinmu agreed to such a deal, it would definitely be a huge loss for the entire martial dragon continent. It seems like the 9 great clans are indeed treacherous. Even though they are competing with each other, they are willing to do anything. Kang Shinmu thought to himself. Who knows, many dragon martial artists might be tempted and attack other dragon martial artists. After all, it was relatively safe to attack dragon martial artists. They could choose opponents that they were confident in and find an opportunity to kill them. However, hunting the servants and even the clansmen of the 9 great clans would be very risky. Once someone accepted the evil prince's offer, it would mean that the entire martial dragon fortress would become extremely chaotic. Because everyone would be in danger, and the dragon martial artists would completely lose trust in each other. Naturally, Jiang Shenwu would never accept young noble Yao Xie's deal. Even though from a personal point of view, he would be able to exchange for 2 sets of Yao cores by killing the dragon martialist, which would allow him to safely accumulate guardian points. But how many dragon martialists were there? If their own people were to cause chaos, the martial dragon continent would soon be completely destroyed. However, Kang Xinmu narrowed his eyes. He didn't necessarily have to reject the evil prince's offer. He nodded and said, "In that case, I'll agree to it." "Really?" The evil prince's lips curled up. He was a little surprised to see Kang Xinmu's serious expression. In addition, he looked at the 4 people behind Kang Xinmu and saw that they also had surprised expressions on their faces. "Kang Xinmu, you're not lying to me, are you?" Kang Xinmu shook his head and said, "Of course not. However, I also have a condition. Let me say this first, I won't take the initiative to hunt other dragon martial artists. Of course, if other dragon martial artists want to attack me, I will fight back and kill them." Hearing Kang Xinmu's words, everyone immediately understood. It turned out that Kang Xinmu was only casually agreeing to the evil prince's request. He didn't intend to directly hunt other dragon martial artists. Instead, he would do what he had to do. Unless other dragon martial artists attacked his team, then he would directly fight back, kill them, and exchange their dragon heart bones for demonic cores. This was the most beneficial method for Kang Xinmu at the current stage. However, the evil prince might not be willing to accept it. Jiang Shenwu felt that what this young noble evildoer needed was the kind of person who would be completely at his disposal. Furthermore, this young noble evildoer seemed to have a rather eccentric temperament. If the other party did not intend to accept it, a fierce battle might ensue. Xiao Yuhua and the others did not see this point. They were still pondering over the meaning behind Kang Xinmu's words. They felt that it was not appropriate. After all, on the surface, he had agreed to cooperate with the demon god race. However, before Xiao Yuhua and the others could figure out the crux of the matter, the evil prince laughed evilly and snorted coldly. "I should be the one saying that your plan is good, right? This way, you won't suffer any losses at all." His tone was not pleasant. Clearly, he did not agree with Kang Xinmu's suggestion. "Of course, but you won't suffer any losses at all." Kang Xinmu stared into his eyes and said, "Interesting." Mr. Evil took out a folding fan from his robes and began to gently wave it. It was a blood-red folding fan. As he gently waved it, blood-red threads began to spread out and encircle his entire body. "How about this, Kang Xinmu, you and I will fight," the evil prince said quickly. He looked at Kang Xinmu with interest. "If you can beat me, I will agree. However, if you lose, I will take your lives today. Do you dare to agree?" "Can I not agree?" Kang Xinmu smiled. "Of course not," Mr. Evil said in a matter-of-fact manner. The blood-red color of the fan in his hand grew increasingly intense. It was as if his entire being was bathed in a blood-red rose, making him look incomparably seductive and demonic. Kang Xinmu chuckled. Chapter 45-59. The 2 guards behind the evil prince were at the 9th level of the rebirth tribulation realm. Any one of them could easily wipe out Kang Xinmu's group of 5. That was why Kang Xinmu had no choice but to listen to the evil prince. Even if he had to pretend to cooperate with the evil prince, he had to get through this first. At the very least, the evil prince didn't look very strong. Kang Xinmu had some confidence in defeating him. Even though the 2 demon god clan guards weren't allowed to make a move according to the rules, their presence alone was enough to deter Kang Shinmu from acting rashly. The demonic god ancestor's consciousness also told Kang Shinmu that it was best to listen to the evil prince. Otherwise, if the evil prince was prepared and ordered the two guards to kill Kang Shinmu, then Kang Shinmu's death would be in vain. Kang Shinmu naturally understood this logic. Kang Shinmu didn't have any life-saving measures now. He didn't have the slightest ability to resist the super-strong guards. Even Ling Yun's protective ring would be easily broken by the other party, and might even be directly destroyed. Let's begin then. Kang Shinmu maintained his black dragon form as the devouring power surged around his body. The two guards of the evil prince retreated at this moment, seemingly giving the evil prince space to display his skills. Immediately after, Jiang Shenwu saw a sinister smile appear on Mr. Evildoer's face. Then, Mr. Evildoer's entire being disappeared, leaving behind only the blood-red rose that had been fanned out by the folding fan. He has the Rose Blood Demon's Duke bloodline. Be careful of his clones. The demonic god ancestor warned Kang Shinmu almost immediately. Just when everyone was paying attention to the blood-red rose where the evil prince was, an even larger blood-red rose suddenly appeared above Kang Shinmu's black dragon form. It was as if fresh blood had bloomed above Kang Shinmu's head. An incomparably thick stench of blood entered Kang Shinmu's nose. It's an illusion. Jiang Shenwu reacted almost immediately. His devouring power surged out crazily and swept towards the blood-red rose above his head. Very quickly, the blood-red rose was completely devoured. What blood-red rose? It was an illusion. On the other hand, Mr. Evil's body was still standing at the same spot, not moving at all. However, the rose blood demon clone that the demonic god ancestor had warned him about had already appeared in a place that Kang Shinmu ancestor had never expected. Behind him, a gigantic demon covered in blood-red roses had appeared above Xiao Bai without any warning. The gigantic demon covered in blood-red roses looked like a giant. It was thousands of feet tall and had no eyes on its head. Its entire body was covered in blood-red roses. It opened its bloody mouth directly at the white divine dragon that Xiao Bai had transformed into. Xiao Bai was, after all, a 1,000-foot-long dragon emperor. At this moment, she reacted immediately. The power of ice and snow erupted from her body. The human-grade divine dragon weapon, 10,000 dragon mysterious ice blade chi, circled around her body and exploded with a terrifying power. Sky-splitting ice cleave. A frosty blade light bloomed in the void. At that moment, Jiang Shenwu did not even have the time to react. He could only watch as the ice-splitting heaven breaker struck the gigantic demon covered in blood-red roses. However, it was unable to do anything to it. Then, Xiao Bai's entire divine dragon body was swallowed by the gigantic demon's bloody mouth. In the battlefield, the snow-white roses that represented Xiao Bai disappeared completely. All that was left was the demon's blood-red mouth. Countless scarlet rays of light bloomed in the surrounding void. This, Xiao Bai. Whether it was Kang Shinmu or Xiao Yuhua and the other two, they were all shocked and in disbelief. Didn't the other party say that he wanted to fight one-on-one with Kang Shinmu? Yet, he used the illusion to confuse Kang Shinmu for a moment and took advantage of this moment to swallow Xiao Bai. The gigantic demon covered in blood-red roses was what the demonic god ancestor had mentioned. It was the evil prince's blood-red rose clone. This was the special bloodline ability of the demon god tribe. Coupled with his unparalleled mastery of illusion, it was impossible to guard against. Why are you all so surprised? At that moment, the gigantic demon's clone covered in blood-red roses opened its mouth and spoke. Then, it completely dispersed into blood-red petals and exploded in all directions. However, there was no sign of Xiao Bai's snow-white divine dragon figure. Soon after, the blood-red petals reformed where the folding fan had been, forming the demonic figure of Mr. Yaoxie. He was still wearing the same handsome and elegant red cloak, with a faint smile on his face. However, a blood-red rose had appeared behind him. In the middle of the rose lay an unconscious young girl. It was Xiao Bai. Just as Kang Shinmu was about to make a move and snatch Xiao Bai back, the blood-red rose petals suddenly rose and covered Xiao Bai completely. Xiao Bai's entire body was covered by the blood-red rose. The blood-red rose was so beautiful that it looked like the most demonic flower in the world. Kang Shinmu, don't be nervous. She is not dead yet. Of course, whether she will die or not will depend on your performance. The evil prince smirked and said, this blood-red rose seal has a total of 7 layers of petals. It is impossible for you to forcefully break it with your strength. However, I will give you a chance. As long as you bring me 7 dragon heart bones that meet the requirements, I will let her go. These words made Kang Shinmu and the others' faces sink. The dragon heart bones that I require must be taken from a dragon martial artist above the 7th level of the rebirth tribulation realm. Furthermore, the divine dragon's blood essence must be at the 2nd level of the dragon emperor. This friend of yours can survive in the blood-red rose seal for 49 days. In other words, you'd better bring 1 dragon heart bone every 7 days. Otherwise, she will be in great pain. The evil prince's words were like a heavy hammer that struck Kang Shinmu's heart. He did not expect that even though he had some understanding of the 9 great tribes, he would still encounter such a situation at this time. It was obvious that the other party had no intention of fighting with Kang Shinmu one-on-one. He just wanted to use Kang Shinmu to obtain the dragon heart bone of a dragon martial artist. The evil prince was too cunning. Of course, this was not a common characteristic of the demon god tribe. Some of the demon god tribe were also very straightforward. Just like humans, they had different personalities. However, Kang Shinmu did not expect that the evil prince would change his target to Xiao Bai. It was impossible for him to guard against him. Kang Shinmu, I will leave first. Have fun. The blood-red rose seal will remain here. You can't break it unless you bring the dragon heart bone. Then, I will appear again to help you break the seal. Chapter 45-60. With the disappearance of the evil prince, his 2 powerful guards disappeared as well, leaving no one behind to guard the blood-red rose. The surroundings were deathly silent. Kang Shinmu and the other 3 remained in their mystical dragon forms, staring at the blood-red rose. What do we do now? Liang Zhao's red dragon head swallowed its saliva, looking a little comical. It was obvious that it was at a loss. This evil prince is so strange. Xiao Yuhua's expression was extremely solemn as she flew towards the blood-red rose. She could sense the presence of a living being at the center of the blood-red rose. That living being was the unconscious Xiao Bai. She could sense that she was not dead. She might be asleep or trapped in an illusion. Let's see if we can break this blood-red rose first. Kang Shinmu said solemnly. Didn't the evil prince say that we can't break this rose? If we can, he wouldn't have left just like that. Liang Xiao said gloomily. Kang Shinmu looked at him without saying a word. He felt that there was something wrong with this kid's brain. That Mr. Evildoer and his 2 bodyguards were beyond imagination. Who knew if they had really left or not? Even if they had really left, Kang Shinmu was very confident in the 7-layered seal of the blood-red rose. He wanted to give it a try, because his devouring power was indeed different from ordinary powers. Ordinary powers could not break the 7-layered seal of the blood-red rose, but it did not mean that his devouring power could not break it. How about this, let's try to attack it first. Kang Shinmu instructed Xiao Yuhua and the other 2. He wanted to give it a try and see what was going on with the blood-red rose. Don't use too much power first, in case you hurt Xiao Bai. Xiao Yuhua said. Although the possibility of destroying the blood-red rose in one go was very small, Xiao Yuhua was still very worried that it would hurt Xiao Bai inside, so he planned to start from the weakest. Then, the 4 of them surrounded the blood-red rose. Void Dragon Sky-Piercing Strike. Ran was the first to act, and she was also the most decisive one. 6 beams of pitch-black dragon breath condensed in the void and bombarded the huge blood-colored rose. At the same time, Kang Xinmu, Liang Xiao, and Xiao Yuhua also attacked, but they didn't use too much power. The attacks of the 4 of them landed on the surface of the blood-colored rose one after another. Then, they felt an extremely tyrannical rebounding force. The rebounding force created a series of ripples that actually pushed the 4 of them back several hundred meters. Unscathed. They saw that the surface of the blood-colored rose remained unscathed under their joint attacks. The entire seal of the blood-colored rose was not damaged in the slightest. Naturally, Xiao Bai, who was sealed inside, was also unscathed. They could sense that her aura was still very calm, and she was still unconscious. Use more power, Xiao Yuhua said immediately. The 4 of them burst forth with even greater power and directly bombarded the blood-red rose seal. Immediately after, an even stronger rebounding force erupted from the blood-red rose seal, shaking out and pushing them back several thousand meters. The blood-red rose seal seemed to be a mirror that could reflect any attack. No matter how many attacks they launched, there was no way they could break the seal. Let's not stop. Keep attacking. Xiao Yuhua's expression was obviously a little ugly. The same was true for Liang Xiao, Ran Ran, and Kang Xinmu. There was a hint of anxiety in their eyes. However, this was only on the surface. At least for Kang Xinmu, it was only on the surface. It seemed like he was anxiously attacking the blood-red rose seal, but in fact, he was trying to use his devouring power to devour the power of the blood-red rose seal. When he had first attacked the blood-red rose seal, he had already tried it and discovered that his devouring power could completely devour the power of the blood-red rose seal. Moreover, he could devour it for his own use. Kang Xinmu's devouring power had already transformed into the samsara power. Not only could he devour the power of various attributes, but he could also devour any object. As long as it existed, he could devour it and convert it into power. At the same time, he could devour other powers for his own use, just like when he had fused with the Dragon Scar blood pendant. This was the case now. As he devoured, he felt a strand of blood-red power appear in his body. As he was afraid of attracting the attention of the evil prince, he only devoured a little bit of power this time. Like a small flame on the sun, he had devoured it unknowingly. Jiang Shenwu could sense that the seal of the blood-red rose was formed by strands of blood-red energy. It was like the surface of a mirror that blocked out all the energy from the outside. These blood-red power strands seemed to contain some kind of illusory power. This was the reason why Xiao Bai had been in a deep sleep and coma. He wondered what kind of illusory realm Xiao Bai was currently in. Seeing that she did not show any signs of struggling, she might be in a relatively quiet and stable illusory realm. This made Kang Xinmu heave a sigh of relief. After all, Xiao Bai had been sealed in this way. It was good enough that she had not been tortured. As long as he could save her, everything would be fine. Since the evil prince had appeared and set up such a situation, there should not be any demon slaves coming to disturb Kang Xinmu and the others for the time being. After all, if Kang Xinmu had really brought him 7 dragon heart bones like what the evil prince had said, then the evil prince had reaped a great harvest. It was much more useful than killing Kang Xinmu. In terms of battle merits, it was obviously more advantageous. The evil prince was really not interested in killing Kang Xinmu. Kang Xinmu's true battle strength was too strong. After killing Kang Xinmu, even if he obtained Kang Xinmu's dragon heart bone, it would only be at the level of the 9th level of the Dragon King, the 2nd level of the Rebirth Realm. This level of dragon heart bone was not considered valuable battle merits at all. Therefore, the evil prince was not interested in Kang Xinmu. Even the 4 people who came with Kang Xinmu were not interested. He needed the corpse of a dragon warrior with a high cultivation realm and divine dragon inheritance. Therefore, Kang Xinmu and the others could study the blood rose seal first. Even in his wildest dreams, the young noble evildoer would never have imagined that Jiang Shenwu possessed such an unimaginable devouring power. At this moment, he had already found a way to break the blood rose seal. As long as he used the devouring power to completely devour the blood rose seal, then Xiao Bai would naturally be saved. Of course, this process was a little difficult because it was impossible for Kang Xinmu to completely devour the blood rose seal in one go. Therefore, the process was very long and they had to do a good job of concealment. They could not let the evil prince, who was secretly observing them, notice this situation. After all, no one knew where the evil prince was now. Chapter 45-61. So now, Kang Xinmu had to be very discreet and use his devouring power to wrap around the blood-red rose. Then, once he was ready, he would explode in an extremely short period of time and completely devour the power of the seal of the blood-red rose. This was the only way he could rescue Xiao Bai and bring her away as soon as possible. Continue to attack, Kang Xinmu said in a deep voice. As he attacked, he carefully observed everything around him. If there were any clues, he would be the first to discover it. Xiao Yuhua and the other two's faces were already very ugly. They even began to consider that if they really couldn't break the seal of the blood-red rose, wouldn't they really have to kill a dragon warrior every 7 days? If that happened, wouldn't they become traitors? Even if Xiao Bai was by their side, she would probably not be willing to let Kang Xinmu and the others kill 7 experts from the dragon martial artist side in order to save her. So, they even used their human-tier Holy Spirit dragon weapons. They wanted to use their strongest power to see if they could break the seal on the blood-red rose. Unfortunately, their power was still a little lacking. Even Kang Xinmu was the same. Their attacks were unable to break the seal of the blood-red rose. After trying for an hour, they were finally exhausted and gave up on this plan. Looks like we can only leave first. Kang Xinmu sighed and decided to leave with them first. Xiao Yuhua and the other two had a complicated look in their eyes. They were obviously a little uncomfortable, but under the current situation, they had no other choice. We're leaving now? Leaving Xiao Bai here alone? Xiao Yuhua still felt a little uncomfortable. Otherwise, what else can we do? If we can't break the seal of this rose, we can only try to hunt down other dragon martial artists. Or, we can ask the teachers if they have any ideas. Kang Xinmu shook his head and said. Of course, that was not what he was thinking. All of this was just a show from Mr. Yao Xie, who might be observing from the shadows. All right. Xiao Yuhua nodded. She had wanted to stay here to protect Little White, but on second thought, Little White wasn't in any danger now. On the other hand, if she were to stay here alone, she would be doomed if she encountered any danger. As for Xiao Bai, the blood-red rose seal was not something that a dragon martial artist at her level could break. Whether it was the dragon martial artists or the 9 major races, no one would violate the rules and let an expert who exceeded the rules go to the battlefield just to kill Xiao Bai. Therefore, for the time being, Xiao Bai was definitely safe. Of course, Xiao Yuhua was still very worried. Looking at Kang Xinmu's appearance, Xiao Yuhua knew that Kang Xinmu seemed to have a way, so she listened to him and left first. They immediately flew back. As the 4 traveled, they quickly vanished from the battlefield. The 4 divine dragons left at an extremely fast speed. It was only then that the evil prince flashed out of the void at the side, a faint red figure. He looked in the direction in which they left, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Hunt the dragon martial artists for me, Kang Xinmu. My achievements will be glorious because of you. The evil prince took one last look at the blood-red rose seal. He was very confident in his seal. Then, he turned around and left the battlefield under the protection of the 2 guards. He felt that he did not need to leave anyone here to guard. After all, if there was any problem with the blood-red rose seal, he would be able to sense it directly. Half an hour later. The blood-red rose seal in the void was still spinning, emitting a demonic red light. A white-robed girl was sleeping in it. All of a sudden, there was a ripple in the void, and then 4 divine dragons appeared next to the blood-red rose. These 4 divine dragons were none other than Kang Shinmu and the other 3 divine dragons. After Kang Shinmu left this place, he directly activated the power of the instant magic ring, and this power instantly teleported the 4 of them to this place. Don't hesitate. Pay attention to your surroundings, and help me block anything that happens. Kang Shinmu said in a low voice, and then his entire body erupted with the devouring power. Previously, he had completely covered the surface of the blood-red rose seal with his devouring power and did not invade the inside of the seal. Furthermore, he had simulated the color of blood. This made the surface of the blood-red rose look no different from how it was at the beginning. Therefore, the evil prince did not notice it at all. Now that Kang Shinmu had returned after a period of time, he immediately triggered the devouring power that covered the blood-red rose seal. When the sealing power in his body collided with the devouring power on the blood-red rose seal, a terrifying devouring vortex suddenly appeared in the field. Devouring seal! Kang Shinmu shouted. Immediately, the devouring vortex devoured all the power of the blood-red rose seal into Kang Shinmu's body and stored it. This happened extremely quickly. Under the eruption of the devouring vortex, the seal of the blood-red rose was rapidly broken layer by layer. The first layer, the second layer, the third layer, there was a total of 7 layers of seal, and the evil prince was very confident about it. However, at this moment, Kang Shinmu had completely devoured them with the devouring power and made them his. Moreover, there was not the slightest damage. When this power was stored, it could even allow Kang Shinmu to activate the blood-red rose seal once. This was the function of the fusion of the dragon blood pendant, or rather, it was the transformation of the samsara power of Kang Shinmu's devouring power. At this moment, the 7 layers of the blood-red rose seal were almost instantly devoured by Kang Shinmu. At this time, Kang Shinmu had used the divine dragon tyrant body technique to attack, so the speed at which his devouring power was devoured was much faster than usual. In just a few moments, the power of the blood-red rose seal was completely devoured by the devouring vortex and became Kang Shinmu's power. She's appeared. Take her away. When Kang Shinmu saw Xiao Bai's sleeping figure appear in front of him, he immediately waved his hand and used the devouring power to bring her back. Let's go. The instant magic ring had already been prepared. Xiao Yuhua and the other 2 took Xiao Bai and left. Kang Shinmu was the last to jump into the void tunnel formed by the instant magic ring. In a short period of time, they had rescued people and escaped. The blood-red rose seal in the field was only left with a trace of demonic aura. At this time, the demon god races the evil prince also sensed that the blood-red rose seal had been broken. Something's wrong. The evil prince's face immediately darkened. He quickly rushed to the place where the blood-red rose seal was with his 2 guards. Unfortunately, when he arrived after an incense stick's time, he found that the field was already empty. Not only had the blood-red rose seal been completely broken, but the female dragon martial artist who had been sealed had also disappeared. There was not a single trace left in the field. However, the evil prince felt a trace of demonic aura in the field. Demon god race? Demon leader race? Chapter 45-62. The evil prince had no idea that he had guessed in the wrong direction. One of the reasons Kang Shinmu had used the instant magic ring to travel over was to lure them in the wrong direction. In that case, it might take a long time for them to realize that Xiao Bai had been rescued by Kang Shinmu and the others. Kang Shinmu had the laughing flower dragon carry Xiao Bai's body with its dragon claws and return to the martial dragon fortress. They needed to see how Xiao Bai was doing. Kang Shinmu had devoured the power of the Crimson Rose Seal and had become much stronger. More importantly, he could seal any expert on the battlefield if he used all of this power. This was a great help to Kang Shinmu. He might be able to kill some opponents he had not been able to kill before. It's a pity that the power of this seal seems to weaken every once in a while. I must use all of this power within 7 days. Kang Shinmu thought. 7 layers of seal. Every 7 days, one layer would weaken. This was the characteristic of the Crimson Rose Seal. Kang Xinmu decided to go back and ensure Xiao Bai's safety before going out to battle again. They did not encounter any accidents on their return journey. They quickly returned to the martial dragon fortress. Seeing that the 5 of them had returned, with Xiao Bai still in a coma, many people's expressions changed. However, seeing that they had all returned in one piece, they were rather relieved. After all, it was good enough that they had returned in one piece. Although one of them was unconscious, he seemed to be fine. At most, he had suffered some minor injuries. He should be in good condition. They wondered if Kang Xinmu and the others had gained much this time. Unfortunately, outsiders naturally did not know what Kang Xinmu and the others had gained this time. Kang Xinmu and the others quickly brought Xiao Bai back to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy office. They met Ling Hu Dai. She did not expect Kang Xinmu to return so soon and was somewhat surprised. What's wrong with her? Ling Hu Dai asked from within the room, a puzzled look on her face. So, Kang Xinmu explained what had happened just now. You're saying that you met the descendant of a demon god duke? He claimed to be the evil prince and used an evil method to seal her. You spent a lot of effort to save her. Ling Hu Dai's face immediately changed. It's already very fortunate that you were able to return. I'll check on her first. Then, she reached out and covered Xiao Bai's body with her innate ability. After a brief inspection, her expression didn't change much. Soon, she raised her head and looked at Kang Xinmu. She's in good condition. Her life isn't in any danger, and her mental state is stable. She's just in a deep sleep. Some illusory power has entangled her. I'll ask Instructor Gong Yu to come over. There should be a way to wake her up. Gong Yu was the heavenly mandate Holy Light Dragon, a dragon warrior physician from Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Immediately, Gong Yu was called over by Ling Hu Dai. He wore a white robe and looked extremely holy, emitting a holy aura. Gong Yu was the same as Ling Hu Dai. After a brief inspection, he smiled warmly and said, "Don't worry, there's no problem. I'll bring her back to the academy to rest for a few days, and she'll wake up. There are some formations in the academy that can remove the illusory power entangling her." How long will it take? Kang Xinmu asked. At most half a month, at least 7 days, Gong Yu said with a gentle smile. All right, thank you, senior instructor. All right, thank you, senior instructor. Kang Xinmu nodded. It seemed that he wouldn't be able to bring Xiao Bai to the next battle. Moreover, Xiao Yuhua would probably return to accompany Xiao Bai. If that was the case, Kang Xinmu could only bring Ran Ran and Liang Xiao out. With 3 people going out, it was naturally more dangerous than before. However, Kang Xinmu didn't mind. After all, he had the power of the Crimson Rose Seal in these 7 days. When this power erupted, no one would be able to withstand it. At least, those who were allowed to go to the battlefield this year wouldn't be able to withstand it. Whether it was the servants of the 9 major clans, the clansmen, or the dragon martial artists, no one below the 5th level of the Dragon Emperor could withstand the Crimson Rose Seal. The power of this seal should have been created by the blood-red folding fan in the evil prince's hand. That was definitely a high-grade demon weapon, or even a heaven-level holy demon weapon. This was the same level as the void-ripping void magic blade, instant magic ring, and sky-imprisoning demon orb. This power is probably equivalent to a one-time use sky-imprisoning demon orb. Kang Xinmu thought to himself. If he used the sky-imprisoning demon orb now, its effect would not be as strong as the Crimson Rose Seal. However, this was because he had not cultivated the bloodline of the 6-winged heavenly demon god. In addition, his cultivation was only at the 2nd level of the reincarnation rebirth realm. Compared to the evil prince, he was much weaker. If Kang Xinmu cultivated the bloodline of the 6-winged heavenly demon god and raised his cultivation realm, he could casually use the sky-imprisoning demon orb to imprison an opponent as strong as the Crimson Rose Seal. No matter what, the strength of the Crimson Rose Seal was far stronger than what Kang Shinmu could release. Therefore, it was a trump card for him. The evil prince's head-on combat strength seems to be about the same as mine. However, if he has a holy demon weapon like the void-ripping void magic blade, his combat strength will definitely be stronger than mine. Kang Shinmu was a little wary. Not every member of the 9 great clans was this terrifying, but as long as one of them appeared, they were basically confident of winning. He had to be more careful in the future. Moreover, the members of the 9 great clans, such as the evil prince, seemed to be very cunning. Not only did they want to kill the dragon martial artists for battle merits, but they also wanted to use some means to directly cause internal strife among the dragon martial artists. This method obviously prevented the dragon martial artists of the dragon martial continent from reaping the benefits of a third party. If the martial dragon fortress united against the 9 great clans, the 9 great clans would probably suffer great losses. To them, if they wanted to compete fairly and reduce some losses, then the evil prince's method was the best way. Once it caused internal strife in the martial dragon continent, the martial dragon fortress could be said to collapse on its own. It would be best if the 4 dragon martial academies fought against each other. In that case, the situation would be quite good for the 9 great clans as a whole. After all, the more chaotic the situation, the better. In the process of competition, they only needed to reduce the losses. The incident with the evil prince was a wake-up call for Kang Shinmu. The invasion of the dragon martial continent by the 9 great clans was definitely not something that could be won by force. He also needed to use his brain. In the absence of the crushing power of a supreme level, how to operate was crucial. Among the 9 great clans, there should be many methods similar to the evil prince's. In the future, we have to be careful of our own people. Although we won't hunt other dragon martial artists, other dragon martial artists might want to hunt us. When Kang Shinmu left the office of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, he reminded Ran Ran and Liang Xiao. Instructor Gong Yu had already brought Xiao Bai back to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. Xiao Yuhua naturally had to follow to take care of her sister. Chapter 45-63. Of course, before they set off, Kang Shinmu exchanged 3 9th-tier reincarnation tribulation frost bad demon cores for guardian points. They were divided into 5 equal portions, and all of them had gained quite a lot. Kang Shinmu did some calculations. If he wanted to break through to the Dragon Emperor's level, he would need a lot of cultivation resources that contain Dragon Mark energy. If he could gain like this every day, he could try to break through after a month. Of course, it was unlikely that he could gain like this every day. However, Kang Shinmu thought that he might gain more in 1 or 2 days. He could kill any member of the 9 great races and gain enough guardian points. It was just that it was more difficult to kill the members of the 9 great races. Let's go to the virtual human race's territory. Kang Shinmu brought Liang Xiao and Ran Ran to the virtual human race's territory to investigate the situation. The virtual human race's combat ability was slightly weaker than the other races, but they were very good at hiding and observing. Therefore, every member of the virtual human race was very suitable to be an assassin. To Kang Shinmu, killing members of the virtual human race or slaves was more comfortable. The slaves that the virtual human race reared were called void spirit beasts. The void spirit beasts' combat method was a little special. They mainly used mental attacks. If someone with weak willpower faced them, they would be easily suppressed by their aura. However, it did not matter to Kang Shinmu. His willpower was strong enough that he could not be killed. Moreover, the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body technique and Chaotic Dragon Body were also very resistant to this type of attack. The same went for Ran Ran. Among the 3 of them, the only one they had to worry about was Liang Xiao. Wait, why are you guys looking at me? Liang Xiao scratched his head, feeling a little depressed. Am I the only one with a problem and you guys are fine? If you encounter a void spirit beast as strong as the evil prince, you guys won't be able to resist it either, right? How can I be so unlucky to have another void spirit, young master? Kang Shinmu patted his shoulder and said with a smile, don't worry. Even if you can't block the mental attack, we won't let anything happen to you. No, but if I drag them down, even if we kill the void spirit beast, won't I gain very little? Liang Xiao was rather puzzled, but he immediately corrected himself. Of course, I'm not afraid of getting too little. I just want to contribute to the battle, don't you think? I can't let you guys take care of me while I'm fighting. You're right. Kang Shinmu thought for a moment, then I'll give you this Lingyun protective ring. If you can't hold on, you can use the power of this heaven-grade dragon weapon to protect you. Liang Xiao received Ling Yun's protective ring with tears streaming down her face. Outside the martial dragon fortress, in the territory of the void human tribe, Kang Shinmu and the other two immediately set off. This time, they changed opponents because among the 9 major tribes, only the demon god tribe and the demon god tribe knew about him. The other 7 tribes didn't know anything about Kang Shinmu. Therefore, they couldn't go to the demon god tribe now. As for the demon god tribe, Kang Shinmu didn't want to provoke them. After all, he would definitely have more dealings with the demon god tribe in the future. Moreover, he still had the consciousness of the demon god ancestor in his sea of consciousness. The void human tribe became the new target of Kang Shinmu and the others. They would strive to reap a good harvest in this place. Kang Shinmu still had the power of the bloody rose seal in his body. He hoped to meet some worthy opponents. There were many dragon warrior squads that came to fight with the void human tribe. At the same time, there were at least 4 or 5 dragon warrior squads shuttling through this territory to search. Unfortunately, the void human tribe was good at hiding. Ordinary dragon warrior squads really couldn't find them. Once the void spirit beasts of the void human tribe appeared, it meant that the other party was confident of winning. Unfortunately, this territory was like heaven to Kang Shinmu. Kang Shinmu was sure that the evil prince could hide from him, not because there was a problem with Kang Shinmu's perception, nor was it because the evil prince's concealment ability was strong. It was because the evil prince had some demon soldiers with concealment abilities. With such a top-notch demon soldier on him, it was naturally difficult for Kang Shinmu to find traces of him. However, even though the void spirit beasts of the void human tribe had a strong concealment ability, Kang Shinmu could still rely on the power of the fused Mo Wu beast to find traces of them wandering in the void. When the void spirit beasts moved out, they moved alone. They didn't gather together because the efficiency of detection was not high. However, once they determined who their opponent was, they would quickly gather in a certain area. When there were enough of them, they would attack and kill that group of enemies in one fell swoop. Now, the void human tribe's enemies were naturally the dragon warriors of the martial dragon continent. At this moment, the entire battlefield of the 9 great tribes was already a little chaotic. Kang Shinmu and the other 2 had already killed 2 void spirit beasts along the way. Basically, the void spirit beasts were hiding at the side and observing them. However, Kang Shinmu had turned the tables and launched a sneak attack. The 2 void spirit beasts were only at the 5th or 6th level of the rebirth tribulation realm. They didn't even have time to react before they were smashed to death. They had entered the depths of the void human tribe's territory. The aura of the void human tribe was already very thick. Dragon warriors rarely came to this area. However, at the same time, Kang Shinmu also sensed the aura of the demon god tribe. Or rather, it was the aura of a demon beast. Is it a demon beast? Or a demon slave? Why is there the aura of a demon god tribe or demon slave here? Kang Shinmu was a little puzzled. However, he quickly sensed the fluctuations of a battle storm not far away. He quickly rushed in that direction with Liang Xiao and ran. He discovered that the battle storm was actually caused by 2 void spirit beasts and a demon slave. Or perhaps, a demon beast? When Kang Shinmu saw this scene from afar, his expression changed. He found that the demon beast seemed a little familiar. Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon? Kang Shinmu couldn't believe his eyes. Why had the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon come to the Martial Dragon Fortress to join in the fun? This Heaven Awakening Devil Dragon had the demonic dragon bloodline, which was at the 3rd level of the demonic Emperor realm. He was considered very strong among demonic beasts, because most demonic beasts could not advance their bloodline to the next level after reaching the demonic Emperor realm. However, the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon had reached the 3rd level Demon Overlord level. He was clearly different from other demon beasts. It was said that the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon was originally a dragon warrior. Later on, he merged with the demon beast bloodline and became a demon dragon. In other words, the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon had originally obtained the demon dragon bloodline. When he matured to a certain extent, the demon beast bloodline took over most of his body. In the past, Kang Shinmu didn't know about his situation. However, now, he was very clear that the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon wasn't an ordinary demon beast or a demon slave. Chapter 45-64. Kang Shinmu already knew this. But he had not expected to see the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon here. No demonic beast had ever come to the Martial Dragon Fortress before. What was going on? When Kang Shinmu arrived, the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon had already killed the 2 Void Spirit Beasts. The 2 Void Spirit Beasts were not very strong and could not fight back against the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon. The Heaven Opening Demon Dragon had clearly noticed Jiang Shenwu and the other 2. However, he only glanced back at them before a thought-provoking look appeared in his eyes. Then, he turned around and flew off into the distance. He was the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon. Kang Shinmu was certain of this identity, but now, seeing the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon turn and fly away, Kang Shinmu narrowed his eyes and suddenly thought of something. When he used the Instant Magic Ring, a demonic weapon from the demon god race, to travel through space to save Whitey, he had the intention of confusing Mr. Yao Xia. Perhaps Mr. Yao Xia would think that the Crimson Rose Seal was broken by the demon god race because of the aura of the Instant Magic Ring. Then, wouldn't he be thinking the same thing now? If the demonic beasts from the Martial Dragon continent, including the heaven-opening demonic dragon, were to cause trouble in the territories of the 8 great clans other than the demon gods, no matter how well they tried to conceal themselves, they would be discovered sooner or later. There was no need to be too obvious. Otherwise, it would arouse suspicion. Moreover, it had to be done step by step so that the 8 major races would be more and more suspicious. Eventually, the 8 major races would join forces to eliminate the demon god tribe. It seems that the experts of the Martial Dragon continent are not brainless. Kang Shinmu thought to himself. Seeing the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon leave, Kang Shinmu naturally could not acknowledge him here. After all, no one knew if there were powerful existences of the Void Spirit race hiding nearby. Now, the mission of the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon and the others was rather important. Moreover, Kang Shinmu guessed that the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon's identity was sensitive. After all, he was not a pure demon slave. Everyone knew that the Martial Dragon continent was made up of demon beasts that were the descendants of demon slaves. How could there be such a pure demon god bloodline? The aura of the heaven-opening demon dragon could, to a large extent, lure the enemy to think of the demon god race. If Kang Shinmu were to greet him now, it would be bad if he was exposed. Liang Xiao and Ran Ran did not say anything. Although Liang Xiao did not understand what was going on, he would not speak carelessly on the battlefield of the 9 races. Just like when Kang Shinmu pretended to agree to the evil prince's request to go back to hunt the dragon warrior, he did not step forward to accuse him. At this time, it was not only a contest of strength, but also a secret plan. Let's go. Kang Shinmu pretended to be very afraid of the Heaven Awakening Rogue Dragon and hurriedly flew in the opposite direction with Ran Ran and Liang Xiao. In the void, they flew very fast. Along the way, they often encountered some lone void spirit beasts. Kang Shinmu discovered them, and then he suddenly attacked and killed them. Before they knew it, 2 days had passed. In the Void Human Tribe's territory, Kang Shinmu and the other two had already obtained a total of 7 Void Spirit Beasts, Void Spirit Pills. These 7 Void Spirit Pills were not of a high level, but added together, they were worth as much as a 9th-tier Reincarnation Tribulation Realm Frostbat Demon Pill. If the 3 of them divided it equally, although it was not much, it was already quite a good harvest compared to the other dragon warrior groups. Kang Shinmu and the other two were even more careful now. As they walked in the void, they were always ready to use their defensive methods. Both Ran and Liang Xiao were so. After all, they had seen the evil prince's concealment ability. Now that the Void Human Tribe was already good at concealment, compared to the evil prince, they should be more careful. In this territory, they would not encounter any experts from other races other than the Void Human Tribe. However, this was only at the current stage. Who knew if some other race would come up with some strange method to sneak around on the battlefield? 2 Void Spirit Beasts, both 7th-tier Reincarnation Tribulation Realm. Get ready to attack. After killing 7 Void Spirit Beasts, Kang Shinmu and the others also gained some experience in killing Void Spirit Beasts. They also understood the Void Spirit Beasts' main weaknesses better. Now that he suddenly saw 2 Void Spirit Beasts gathered together, Kang Shinmu first pretended not to notice. Then, after getting closer, he suddenly led Liang Xiao and Ran to attack them. Void Dragon Sky Piercing Strike. Dragon Blood Meteor Explosion Technique. The 7th-tier Reincarnation Tribulation Realm Void Spirit Beasts were still very strong. Therefore, Liang Xiao did not hesitate at all. He directly released the power of the Black Blood Exploding Pearl. His divine dragon blood essence burned all over his body. An extremely terrifying power erupted. It directly enveloped one of the Void Spirit Beasts. The 2 Void Spirit Beasts did not seem to realize that they had been discovered at all. It was only when Kang Shinmu and the others attacked that they panicked a little. They wanted to turn around and escape, but they were still engulfed by the 3's attacks. Extremely powerful power completely enveloped the 2 Void Spirit Beasts. 2 agonized cries came from the exploding dragon blood vortex. However, when he heard these 2 cries, Kang Shinmu's expression darkened. Something's not right. Be careful. These 2 cries were indeed the cries of the Void Spirit Beasts. There was no problem. But the crux was that Kang Shinmu and the others had dealt with even weaker Void Spirit Beasts in the past. Most of those Void Spirit Beasts had even acted alone. Even those Void Spirit Beasts could rely on their acute senses to resist to a certain extent before the attack arrived. Even though resistance was futile, it was still much more normal than these 2 Void Spirit Beasts that were completely powerless to resist. They weren't even able to resist. Weren't they acting a little too unprofessional? Kang Shinmu didn't hesitate at all. He turned around and erupted with the blood-red rose sealing energy that he had devoured earlier. At this moment, the 7 layers of sealing energy surged and enveloped a large area of space where the 2 Void Spirit Beasts resided. After that, the blood-red rose energy condensed and completely enveloped that area of space, sealing it off. What? Right at this moment, the vortex of attack dispersed, and then an incredulous voice resounded from within it. Kang Shinmu and the others focused their gazes, and sure enough, they saw that the 2 Void Spirit Beasts weren't within the blood-red rose sealing energy. Surprisingly, they were 2 semi-translucent members of the Void Spirit Clan. The Void Spirit Clan looked just like humans, but they were born with a type of energy called Void within their bodies. This energy allowed them to be skilled in spiritual energy and concealment techniques. Moreover, they possessed a unique advantage in terms of perception and scouting. So, the Void Spirit Clan was actually a branch of the human race, and they just possessed the energy of Void. Chapter 45-65. Let's end this quickly. Kang Shinmu did not hesitate at all. He quickly realized that the three of them had probably been noticed by the Void Human tribe because they had been continuously killing Void Spirit beasts in this area. The two Void Human tribe members in front of them had been sent to deal with the three of them. These two Void Human tribe members had disguised themselves as two Void Spirit beasts and were lying in ambush in this space, waiting for Kang Shinmu and the others to attack. They had originally wanted to launch a swift counterattack while Kang Shinmu and the others were attacking. Unfortunately, Kang Shinmu's reaction was faster than theirs. The other party had originally wanted to mimic the cries of the Void Spirit beasts to attract the attention of Kang Shinmu and the others. However, the cries had unexpectedly aroused Kang Shinmu's suspicions. At this moment, the two Void Human tribe members were enveloped by the Blood Red Rose's sealing power. Judging from their identities, these two Void Human tribe members weren't royalty or nobility, and they didn't have any powerful inheritance of the power of Void. However, they were still members of the Void Human tribe, not slaves. Kang Shinmu did not know if they had any powerful treasures on them, but no matter what, he would kill them first. After being enveloped by the Blood Red Rose's sealing power, the consciousness of the two Void Human tribe members became a little fuzzy. However, they still instinctively began to struggle. They were both at the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation state. The Void power inheritance was at the 3rd level of the Emperor level, which was equivalent to the 3rd level of the Dragon Emperor's inheritance blood essence. Therefore, they were definitely much more powerful than Xiao Bai. After being enveloped by the Blood Red Rose's sealing power, they did not immediately lose consciousness. Instead, they were still using their own Void power to resist. Unfortunately, they had just begun to resist when the attacks of Kang Shinmu and the others swept over. Originally, with their strength and the fact that they still had quite a few Void Wave divine weapons on them, it would be a piece of cake for them to block the attacks of Jiang Shenwu and the other two. In fact, if they were given enough time, it would be possible for them to break through the power of the Blood Red Rose's seal. However, under the influence of the Blood Red Rose's sealing power, their consciousness was in a half-awake state. The sealing power contained a strong illusory power that kept trying to drag them into an illusion. Under such circumstances, they could not even unleash half of their strength. They had only just taken out their void weapons when the ferocious attacks of Kang Shinmu and the others arrived. As the Blood Red Rose's sealing power had been devoured by Kang Shinmu for his own use, he could completely control this power now. Therefore, the attacks of him, Ran, and Liang Xiao could easily penetrate the Blood Red Rose's sealing power and hit the two Void Human tribe members. Kill. The offensive battle patterns within the Snow Wind Dragon Stone completely erupted at this moment. Jiang Shenwu gathered all of the power he had absorbed from the Void Spirit Beasts to unleash the Void Dragon Sky-Piercing Strike. The Void Human tribe members' physical bodies were already relatively weak. Now that Kang Shinmu, Ran, and Liang Xiao had attacked together, the two Void Human tribe members had no way of resisting at all. Enveloped by the Blood Red Rose's sealing power, they only had time to unleash a burst of power from their void weapons before they were drowned by the attacks of Kang Shinmu and the others. Enveloped by the Blood Red Rose's sealing power, they only had time to unleash a burst of power from their void weapons before they were drowned by the attacks of Kang Shinmu and the others. However, the two void weapons did not seem to be of a low grade. The destructive power that they unleashed actually broke through more than half of the Blood Red Rose's sealing power. Seeing this, Kang Shinmu's heart ached. At the same time, he rejoiced. Fortunately, he had the Blood Red Rose's sealing power. Otherwise, even he would not be able to withstand the power of the other party's void weapons. It should be pointed out that their 5-man team had attacked the Blood Red Rose's sealing power with all their might earlier, but they had still not been able to break it. The other party had only unleashed the power of 2 void weapons, yet they had managed to break through more than half of the Blood Red Rose's sealing power. It could be seen that these two people were considered extremely powerful at the same cultivation level. Even if they were to fight against the evil prince, they might not necessarily lose. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu had struck first. Before the other party could react, he had forced the other party into an extremely passive position. Then, he had decisively unleashed his strongest power and killed the other party. The most terrifying thing was that Kang Shinmu had already anticipated that he might encounter very powerful Void Human Tribe members. Thus, when he had been hunting Void Spirit beasts for the past 2 days, he had used his powerful physical body to store all the power he had devoured. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for him to kill these 2 powerful Void Human Tribe members in one attack today. This situation gave Kang Shinmu an unexpected idea. He thought that if he could directly look for the seniors at Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy before he set off and store some powerful power there, wouldn't he be able to unleash a wave of power and kill all his opponents instantly when he came out? Of course, Kang Shinmu knew that this was not very realistic. The key was that the defense of his divine dragon body was not very strong. This affected the upper limit of the total amount of power he could devour. The power he had devoured from the Void Spirit beasts over the past 2 days had basically reached his upper limit. This was only enough for him to kill the 2 Void Human Tribe cultivators who were in a half-conscious state. If he had to face them head-on, it was still not enough. Of course, being fully prepared and not being fully prepared were 2 completely different concepts. Kang Shinmu thought for a moment. Next, he would have to devour enough power in advance before he set off. This was a little like cheating. However, at the moment of life and death, no matter how much he cheated, it would not be too much. The 2 Void Human Tribe members died under the attacks of Kang Shinmu and the other 2. Presumably, the higher-ups of the Void Human Tribe would soon find out about this. Therefore, Kang Shinmu and the others cleaned up the battlefield as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, the power I devoured 2 days ago was all used up in one go. Also, more than half of the Bloody Rose's sealing power was also broken by the other party. This time, we suffered a great loss, but we also gained a lot. They put away the Void Spirit pills of the 2 Void Human Tribe members. Just the value of these 2 Void Spirit pills was comparable to the value of 20 demonic cores of the Frost Bats from before. This time, they could be said to have profited greatly. After all, the Void Spirit pills of the Void Human Tribe members were at least 10 times more valuable than the Void Spirit pills of the Void Spirit beasts. Apart from taking away the Void Spirit pills of the 2 Void Human Tribe members, they also took away all the cultivation resources and void weapons that the other party had. They did not have many cultivation resources on them. They only had some treasures that contained the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and void power. The former was of some use to Kang Shinmu and the others, but the latter was completely useless. Of course, this might not be the case for Kang Shinmu. He could try to devour void power when he returned. As for the void weapons, each of these 2 fellows had 3 void weapons on them. In total, they had 6 void weapons. They looked extremely valuable and contained extremely strong void power. Let's hurry up and leave. Kang Shinmu put away the items and planned to escape with Ran and Liang Xiao as quickly as possible. If his guess was right, these were perhaps the first members of the 9 great species to die on the battlefield. Chapter 45-66. Just as Kang Shinmu left with the spoils of war, a rippling pattern suddenly appeared in the void near the place where the 2 Void Human Tribe members had died. Then, a few dark figures appeared. These dark figures could not be seen clearly with the naked eye. It was as if they were completely transparent shadows. These were a few extremely powerful Void Human Tribe cultivators. When the void power in their bodies reached a certain level, they could become one with the void, making it impossible for others to detect their existence. These people had sensed the deaths of the Void Human Tribe members and had come to investigate. The 2 Void Human Tribe members who had died were outstanding geniuses among the younger generation of the Void Human Tribe. However, both of them had died here. Not only were their corpses nowhere to be found, but even their belongings had been taken away. The Void Human Tribe cultivators who had rushed over had inherited the void power at the peak of the Emperor level, which was equivalent to the peak of the Dragon Emperor. As for their cultivation levels, they were naturally at the peak of the 9th level of the reincarnation tribulation state. They were not allowed to fight on the battlefield against such powerful beings. However, it was naturally not a problem for them to come and investigate the situation. It's the Bloody Rose seal from the demon god tribe. It's the demon weapon of the evil prince, the Bloody Rose fan. The evil prince? How dare he cause trouble in the territory of the void human tribe? No matter what, the power of the Bloody Rose fan is obvious. It must have been done by the demon god tribe. This time, the demon god tribe must pay the price. If only 2 void spirit beasts had died, then so be it. It wouldn't have caused too much conflict between the 9 tribes. However, the 2 void human tribe members who had died were both geniuses of the younger generation of the void human tribe. They had wanted to nurture them well, but they had died on the battlefield. How were they going to explain this to the families of these 2 geniuses? It was the power of the demon god tribe that had killed these 2 void human tribe geniuses. The void human tribe would naturally cause trouble for the demon god tribe. Unfortunately, they had no idea that these 2 geniuses had been killed by a dragon martial artist from the dragon martial continent, Kang Shinmu. Even if someone told them this news now, they wouldn't believe it, because the power of the blood red rose fan was too obvious. How could they deny it? In the entire world, only the blood rose fan was the evil prince's signature demon weapon. Now that something had happened, everyone would immediately think of him. Of course, Kang Shinmu didn't know what happened after that. However, he had some guesses about the void human tribe's reaction. It was very likely that the void human tribe would seek trouble with the demon god tribe. This was naturally great news for the martial dragon continent. As for Kang Shinmu, he had gained a lot this time, which was also a great thing. He brought Ran Ran and Liang Xiao back to Longwu Fortress excitedly. He went straight to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy office and found Ling Hu Dai. We have taken the void spirit pills from the 2 void human tribe members. They are both at the 9th tier of the reincarnation tribulation realm. Their void power inheritance has reached the 3rd tier of the Emperor level. In addition, there are 2 void energy weapons here. They don't look like ordinary weapons. They should be at the Holy Soul void energy level. Kang Shinmu only took out 2 void energy weapons. He had obtained 6 this time, but he didn't intend to hand them all over for the time being. He also didn't take out the cultivation resources and treasures from the 2 void human tribe members. He still had some things he wanted to test out. After all, the devouring power was so mysterious. Perhaps he could really devour the void power of the void human tribe to cultivate the inheritance of the void power? If that was the case, Kang Shinmu's battle strength would once again rise to a whole new level. When Ling Hu Dai saw what Kang Shinmu took out, her exquisite and perfect face immediately revealed a look of disbelief. The void human tribe were killed by you? Right now, she was completely shocked. The surprise in her eyes could not be concealed no matter what. This was because no one from the 9 major races had died on the battlefield in the entire Dragon Martial continent. These should be the first members of the 9 major races to be killed. The void spirit pills that Kang Shinmu took out clearly came from the void human tribe. Only the void human tribe could have the 2 holy soul void energy weapons. Wait a moment. We need to gather together and appraise them. Can you hand these 2 void energy weapons to me first? Ling Hu Dai asked. Of course. Kang Shinmu smiled. Even if the other party directly snatched them, he couldn't do anything. Therefore, he naturally didn't have any objections if she took them to be appraised. After all, they weren't things that dragon martial artists needed. They were void energy weapons that belonged to the void human tribe. This thing was useless to dragon martial artists, so not everyone would know how to identify its grade. Jiang Shenwu guessed that they would either have to send out Principal Yu Yaji, who was at the level of a super divine dragon, or one of the clans and forces behind Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy would send an expert who knew how to appraise. Kang Shinmu guessed that the ancient Phoenix clan was behind Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. However, he could not be completely sure. According to what the demonic ancestor had said, it was very likely that this was a trap set up by other races. As for who was collaborating with Emperor Shi's Dragon and Martial Arts Academy, Yu Yaji was probably the only dean in the entire academy who knew. Soon, Linghu Dai took the two void energy weapons away and secretly spread the news. She was probably informing some important people. Kang Xinmu, Ran, and Liang Xiao waited together. After a full day and night, they finally saw Linghu Dai walk out of the core of the office with her two void energy weapons. Her face was brimming with smiles, and she also revealed an extremely excited expression. Even though her strength was ranked in the top 3 on the Dragon Emperor list, at this time, she didn't even think that Kang Xinmu could actually kill a member of the void human race. No matter what, this time, Kang Xinmu had won a great victory and made a great contribution. The race that was working with Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy was also very happy this time. They gave better rewards than the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. Kang Xinmu, congratulations. The grade of these two void energy weapons is equivalent to our dragon-level Holy Dragon weapons. Moreover, they are well preserved. As for their value, our Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy can no longer give you anything to exchange for them. Therefore, regarding these two void energy weapons, our backing forces have given you a condition. We can use a dragon-level Holy Dragon weapon to exchange for them. This is a very rare opportunity. 2 for 1, but it was a useless Spectre energy weapon for a dragon-grade Holy Spirit Dragon weapon. Chapter 45-67. Hearing Linghu Dai's words, Kang Xinmu began to ponder. Exchanging 2 for 1 sounded like a loss, but if he did not make the exchange, then these two Spectre weapons would be useless to him. More importantly, these two Spectre weapons were the weakest of the 6 Spectre weapons he had obtained. Although he didn't know how to appraise the grade, just from the aura, Kang Xinmu could still distinguish between good and bad. These two void energy weapons are equivalent to dragon-grade Holy Spirit Dragon weapons. Then, the other 4 are all better than these two. Could it be that they are all heaven-grade Holy Spirit Dragon weapons? Kang Xinmu was delighted. That was on the same level as the Instant Demon Ring, Sky-Imprisoning Demon Pearl, and Void-Ripping Void Demon Blade. This was incredible. Kang Xinmu hadn't expected the two void human race geniuses to have so many divine dragon weapons. It seemed like the two geniuses were not ordinary. It should be known that Su Yi was the princess of the demon god race. Even she only had 3 peak desolate god demonic weapons, which were comparable to heaven-grade divine dragon weapons. But these two geniuses each had 2. It was obvious that their status was not too low. They had most likely come to the Dragon Martial Continent to gain experience. However, they hadn't expected to encounter Kang Xinmu and frame the demon god race's the evil prince. Alright, then I'll exchange these 2 phantom weapons for a dragon-grade Holy Spirit Dragon weapon. After saying this, Kang Xinmu suddenly asked, "That's right, can I choose this dragon-grade divine dragon weapon?" Linghu Dai smiled faintly. Of course you can. And this is only your harvest from the 2 phantom weapons. Aside from this, the 2 of you killed 2 void human race geniuses. You can obtain a vast number of guardian points. I will calculate it for you later. If you add it all up, you should be able to exchange for the Divine Spirit Dragon Martial Technique. Furthermore, it is not an ordinary Divine Spirit Dragon Martial Technique. Furthermore, the faction behind us has given you a special reward for killing the void human race clansmen to encourage you. Here it comes. Kang Xinmu's expression turned serious. Just like the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone last time, he was looking forward to the special reward this time. It was also because of this special reward that so many dragon warriors of the Martial Dragon Continent were willing to go to the battlefield to fight against the 9 races. Otherwise, the number of people risking their lives would be reduced by half. The special reward they're giving this time is much more valuable than the Phoenix Spirit Fire Stone. Even I'm tempted. It's 3 pieces of divine dragon marrow. Linghu Dai said with a serious expression, the divine dragon marrow is only useful to us martial dragons. It is the same for the divine spiritual dragon armaments. Thus, this time, our backline forces have actually obtained sufficient benefits without paying much of a price. Perhaps you haven't heard of this divine dragon marrow. It's a higher-level cultivation resource that can raise the grade of the divine dragon's inheritance blood essence. It can only be produced in places with extremely rich dragon mark energy, and it can only appear in supreme sacred grounds. The divine dragon marrow is divided into 4 grades: heaven, earth, profound, and yellow. This time, the backline forces have given us 3 pieces of yellow grade divine dragon marrow. Although they are of the lowest grade, the amount of dragon mark energy they contain is something you and I cannot imagine. As Linghu Dai spoke, she sighed emotionally. I was fortunate enough to consume 1 piece of yellow grade divine dragon marrow. Back then, it allowed me to break through from the 6th layer of the Dragon Emperor to the 7th layer of the Dragon Emperor. This is a great opportunity for me. To you, this is definitely a great opportunity. Of course, these 3 pieces of divine dragon marrow also have some restrictions. Every martial dragon warrior can only consume 1 piece of divine dragon marrow per year. The backline forces only gave you 3 pieces of divine dragon marrow because they heard that there were 3 of you. As for where the divine dragon marrow had come from, Kang Shinmu didn't think too much about it. It was estimated that during the battle with the dragon gods, they had snatched it from some genius dragon martial artists, or they had directly conquered a supreme holy land of the dragon gods' great world and snatched it. No matter how they got it, now it was back in the hands of the dragon martial artists and became a resource to enhance the strength of the dragon martial artists. 3 pieces of divine dragon marrow, 1 for each of us. Kang Shinmu sighed. It was a pity this time. If Xiao Bai and Xiao Yuhua were here, wouldn't they also be able to obtain 1 piece of divine dragon marrow? They had missed this opportunity. Fortunately, Kang Shinmu and the others had obtained quite a lot of guardian points. When the time came, they could just give some guardian points to Xiao Bai and Xiao Yu as compensation. Therefore, in conclusion, Kang Shinmu's gains this time mainly came in 3 areas. First was 3 pieces of divine dragon marrow and a dragon-grade holy dragon weapon. Second was the large number of guardian points obtained from killing the 2 virtual human tribe geniuses. Third was the items left behind by the 2 virtual human tribe geniuses, including the resources to cultivate the power of void and the remaining 4 top-grade void energy weapons. These 3 items were also easy to distribute. Kang Shinmu, Liang Xiao, and Ran Ran each had 1 piece of divine dragon marrow. Anyway, they could only use 1 piece a year, so it was useless for Kang Shinmu to have so many for himself. On the contrary, if he gave them more, their overall strength would also become stronger. As for the dragon-grade holy dragon weapon, Kang Shinmu would definitely take it for himself. This would increase the top-notch strength of their team. As for the large number of guardian points, Kang Shinmu decided to split them equally among the 5 of them. After all, Xiao Yuhua and Xiao Bai did not participate in this mission. If he gave each of them 20% of the guardian points, it would be enough to exchange for a mortal-grade holy dragon weapon. Of course, they already had mortal-grade holy dragon weapons. Such dragon weapons were of higher quality than quantity, so there was no need to exchange for too many. Their priority now was to save up and exchange for a stronger holy dragon weapon. As for the resources and void energy weapons left behind by the virtual human tribe geniuses, Kang Shinmu planned to study them himself. Only the people close to Jiang Shunwu would know about these things. No one else could possibly know that he still had 4 more void energy weapons on him, and they were all top-grade ones. After that, Kang Shinmu and the others received enough rewards and walked out of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. 3 yellow-grade divine dragon marrow, 1 for each of them. Let's go back and see Xiao Bai. Liang Xiao looked a little anxious. It was obvious that he was still worried about Xiao Bai's situation. Yes. Kang Shinmu nodded. Oh yes, if we combine all the guardian points we got this time, we can exchange for a primary level holy dragon weapon. Who wants to exchange for it first? The remaining guardian points were originally planned to be split among the 5 of them. However, the utilization rate would be lower. These were the remaining points after the 20% discount for the mortal grade holy dragon weapon and the flaming feather storm ball. Therefore, they could use all the guardian points. Hearing Kang Shinmu's words, Liang Xiao instantly scratched his head. I want to exchange for the primary level holy dragon weapon. However, maybe Xiao Bai and the others want it too. Let's go and meet them and discuss it together. That was good too. Chapter 45-68. Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. Kang Shinmu and the other 2 saw Xiao Bai, who was resting, and Xiao Yuhua, who was taking care of her. Xiao Bai had not woken up yet. However, she had been using the formation to dispel the power of illusion every day to get rid of the power of illusion in her body. He believed that she would wake up in another 2 days. Kang Shinmu explained the situation to Xiao Yuhua as soon as he came over. This time, each of us obtained a piece of divine dragon marrow. This time, we came back with the intention of improving ourselves. This time, we will give the guardian points to you to use first. You and Xiao Bai can use them however you want. Try to improve your strength as soon as possible. Each of us needs to improve in order to deal with stronger opponents. It is too difficult for me to do it alone. Kang Shinmu was deeply aware of this. He was alone. If he wanted to have strong attacking abilities, he would have to spend a lot of time cultivating the offensive Holy Spirit Dragon martial technique. But now, he was short of time. Therefore, Xiao Yuhua and the others could make up for Kang Shinmu's shortcomings. For example, it was actually very difficult for Kang Shinmu to finish the battle quickly. Therefore, he paid great attention to the improvement of Xiao Yuhua and the others now. The guardian points would be given to them to improve first. The guardian points obtained next time would not be distributed to them. This distribution method was considered more reasonable. After all, even if these guardian points were given to Kang Shinmu would not be able to improve his combat strength in a short period of time. Therefore, they had to use all methods that could improve everyone's strength. Even if the resources were used first, it was fine as long as their overall strength could be improved. We did not participate in this operation. You risked your lives to obtain the points. How can we just take them away like this? However, Xiao Yuhua shook her head. She did not want to accept it. She was very shocked that Kang Shinmu could kill 2 geniuses of the virtual human tribe. She was also very happy. This meant that after Kang Shinmu and the others obtained the cultivation resources, they would become stronger, and they would be safer. However, when Kang Shinmu said that he wanted to give her the guardian points, she didn't agree. However, Kang Shinmu was very insistent. Everyone's battle prowess had to reach the greatest improvement in the shortest time possible. If these guardian points were given to Kang Shinmu, it would not be enough for Kang Shinmu to level up. Hence, distributing the guardian points to others was the best choice. Kang Shinmu argued with Xiao Yuhua for a long time, with Liang Xiao and Ran persuading her from the side. Finally, after 2 hours, Xiao Yuhua accepted the guardian points and agreed to use them to increase her strength. When Xiao Bai wakes up, we'll use these guardian points together. Xiao Yuhua pondered for a moment and said, right now, our cultivation levels are not high enough. It's a pity that we only managed to break through 1 level last time. Our powers have yet to fully consolidate. It's not suitable for us to break through again. However, the grade of our divine dragon heritage blood essence has already reached the 2nd level of the Dragon Emperor for a few months. This time, I feel that it's about right. We can try to break through. With so many guardian points, we can exchange them for top-grade dragon mark resources. If we don't encounter any bottlenecks, we should be able to break through. Bottlenecks. Bottlenecks were what they were afraid of. The 5 people in Kang Shinmu's team had not encountered any bottlenecks in their heritage blood essence breakthrough so far. Hence, their breakthroughs had been very smooth. As long as they absorbed enough dragon mark energy, the grade of their heritage blood essence would naturally break through. However, once they encountered a bottleneck, they would need several times more dragon mark energy to force a breakthrough. Otherwise, they would have to bide their time and see if there was a chance for them to be more compatible with the divine dragon blood essence and reach the critical point of breaking through. There was a saying that every dragon martial artist had a level of compatibility with their own divine dragon blood essence. If they wanted to raise the grade of the divine dragon blood essence, they needed to reach a certain level of compatibility. Generally speaking, the power of a supreme divine dragon could use some special means to detect the level of compatibility of a dragon martial artist. However, it was not easy, mainly because it would consume a lot of supreme power. Very few dragon martial artists had the opportunity to have their compatibility with their heritage blood tested. The demon god ancestor told Kang Shinmu that in the dragon god's great world, many geniuses had their compatibility level checked when they awakened the divine dragon heritage blood essence. The weakest level of compatibility was level 1, and the strongest was level 99. Of course, even in the entire dragon god's great world, there was no dragon martial artist who had reached level 99. Not to mention the dragon martial artists in the dragon god's great world. Taking the dragon martial continent as an example, the compatibility level of dragon martial artists with their heritage blood essence was basically level 20 or 30. This level of compatibility allowed the dragon martial artist's divine dragon heritage blood essence to break through to the sky dragon realm without any bottlenecks. This was also a normal level of compatibility for dragon martial artists. In fact, in the dragon martial continent, many dragon martial artists of this level lacked enough dragon mark energy to break through to the divine dragon heritage blood essence, not because they were afraid of encountering bottlenecks. When the compatibility level reached level 40, they could cultivate all the way to the peak of the divine dragon realm. When the compatibility level reached level 50, they could cultivate all the way to the peak of the dragon king. Generally speaking, if one could reach level 50, they were qualified to step into the dragon emperor realm. All the Dragon Emperor powerhouses in the Dragon Martial continent were basically above level 50 in compatibility with the heritage blood essence. But at level 50, it was very difficult to improve the compatibility level with the heritage blood essence. Level 51 was very rare, and level 52 was even rarer. Like the great Liang Dragon Emperor, who could directly break through to the third level of the Dragon Emperor realm with his own strength, that was to have a compatibility level of level 53. In the entire Dragon Martial continent, there were only a handful of such people. Later, when the great Liang Dragon Emperor upgraded his blood essence, it was also through enough dragon mark energy that he forcibly broke through. In this way, there was a drawback, that was, the grade of the divine dragon blood essence had improved, but in fact, the compatibility level of the divine dragon heritage blood essence had not improved. This would have a consequence, and that was, compared to other dragon martial artists of the same realm with a higher degree of compatibility, their combat effectiveness would be a little worse. This effect would not be seen in a short period of time. But over time, if they kept using cultivation resources to forcibly break through the grade of the heritage blood essence, it was likely that their combat effectiveness would slowly fall behind other dragon martial artists of the same realm. In the great world of the dragon gods, there is a way to improve the level of compatibility between the dragon martial artists and the heritage blood essence. The demon god ancestor said to Kang Shinmu lightly, "Every supreme holy land was once the place where the real ancient divine dragon fell. For example, the little girl next to you, the black jade extreme dragon. If you find the supreme holy land where the black jade extreme dragon fell and go to that holy land to understand the way, you can correspondingly improve the degree of compatibility between her and the black jade extreme dragon blood essence. As for the results of understanding the way, it depends on her. Of course, many of the supreme holy lands treasure it and will only open a few places for other dragon martial artists to go in and understand the way. It is not easy to get such an opportunity. Kang Shinmu listened to this and nodded. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.